Hello, everybody, and welcome to our meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk Allison, could we please have a roll call?
Yes, Trustee Donnersberger.
Here.
Trustee Eck.
Here.
Trustee Farrell-Mayer.
Here.
Trustee Kennedy.
Present.
Trustee Metz.
Here.
Thank you. And Trustee O'Loughlin is absent. Thank you.
All right, if we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with everybody's approval, I'd like to suggest that we move up on the agenda the first new business item, the life-saving awards for police officers Kassane and Verber. Everybody okay with that? Mm-hmm. Steve, if you want to take over.
Sure. Very good.
You can say, sure. On September 1st at 6:19 p.m., officers were dispatched to Walgreens parking lot at 6600 Willow Springs Road for an unresponsive subject. A male subject was observed in his locked vehicle with a hypodermic needle and a cup holder and a yellow bag of suspect powder. Upon a baton was deployed by one of the officers who ended up smashing out the rear driver's side window to access the vehicle's interior to access the driver. Once inside, the driver's side door was unlocked. The subject was removed by the officers, and 2 4-milligram units of Narcan were administered, ultimately reviving the subject. The Pleasant View Fire Department arrived on the scene. Paramedics transported the subject, who is now responsive from an unresponsive condition when the officers arrived, to LaGrange Hospital, and the subject ultimately made a full recovery. So I'd like to congratulate Officer Verber, and Officer Kassane on this heroic feat. And we have some pins that we'd like to have the family members pin on them and some certificates to present them.
All right, thank you again very much. One more round, please. And if you all want to leave now, we're going to have a long meeting that's projected, so thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to get back to our agenda. The mayor's report is the next item up. We have something new tonight at our meeting. We have assisted listening available, and Eileen is trying it out for the first time, so we have little devices. We have a few, so if anybody here is hard of hearing and would like to try it, you could see David in the back. All right, so Wolf Road update. We are still working with the county and our village engineering firm Strand on the public meeting comments responses. The new updated goal is to have the newsletter and letters ready for the village November board meeting. The overall process for the release of all the public comments and letters and petitions is that we wait until the comments, responses, petitions, etc. have been submitted to IDOT in the draft project development report before making the comments public. Strand is still working with the county to get the general amendment to the intergovernmental agreement, IGA, prepared, which will include the new addition for the work of the public involvement sub-consultant. The new updated goal is to have the amended IGA and contract ready for the December village board meeting. And then after that, it would go to the county board for their approval at the January meeting. After the county approval of the general amendment to the IGA, we would begin preparing the public involvement plan, or PIP, and coordinating with Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT. After the PIP has been approved by IDOT, the updated plan today is that we would hold the first Corridor Advisory Committee, CAC, in 2023 to gather more community input. And last, Wolf Road update is the county will begin resurfacing of Wolf Road from Plainfield Road north to 31st Street. Of course, this is not in the village, but it is close, so I just want to let people know. Sidewalks. There are 4 main areas in the village. Plainfield Road and Wolf Road are both county roads, and both are in a Phase 1 study. The county has stated that they will not be pursuing a 5-lane alternative for Plainfield Road. Joliet Road sidewalk is a state road, and we're waiting on approval from the state to begin phase 1 of the sidewalk along Joliet. The Acacia Drive update, the project is 99% complete, and we're working on a punch list of the remaining items. We have received many compliments that the road, retaining walls, and sidewalk look great. 294 tollway update. The noise walls along the tollway remain on schedule for completion by the end of the year, with the exception of approximate 200-foot section just south of Sacagawea Park. There will be overnight work planned for the end of October for the Plainfield Road Bridge beam work. A resident notification was sent recently to alert all residents to the upcoming overnight work, and we will be working to get any feedback on the trees and landscaping back to the tollway by the end of the year. Coffee and donuts with the mayor. I will be at the Heritage Center Saturday morning, the end of this month on the 29th from 9 to 11 to talk about any Indian Head Park projects, budget feedback, or anything else. We have 2 October employee anniversaries. Police Officer Lee Zeitlin is 19 years, and Public Works Juan Pepe Martinez is 18 years.
Mike Mahar is 5.
And Mike Mahar
Is 5.
is 5 years. Okay, couple other items. Arbor Day proclamation. I will not read the full proclamation. It's in the board packet online if anybody wants to see it, but only the last section, which reads, "Therefore, I, as mayor of Indian Head Park, do hereby proclaim that Friday, April 28th, 2023 is Arbor Day in the village of Indian Head Park, and urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations." Stormwater. Tonight, we'll hear about a stormwater study in part of the village. In addition to the study, Sean Kennedy and I have met with local leaders about regional stormwater and flooding concerns. It may take a while, but we're working with our area leaders to try to look and address the issues as a region. If you are experiencing stormwater issues like a flooded basement, please report your concern on the village website or let me know. And lastly, sad to report that Ed Jakey, a former village president, has passed away recently. So our thoughts are with Carol and his family. With that, we go to public comments. If you have a comment, please come to the podium. Anybody want to make a public comment? Danielle?
Hello, Danielle Shveska, 235 Hiawatha Lane. My comment is about an item that's in your board packet. There is an email regarding the unencumbering tollway funds with regards to the $510,000 that was acquired when the village sold some unusable property to the tollway. My question is there any reason that we wouldn't want to consider perhaps taking that fund and instead of putting it into a general account, direct it specifically towards refurbishing the landscaping and the planting in the area along the tollway property?
The village board can, if they encumber that, they could put it towards any use.
Okay. I would ask that you all maybe consider that just for that purpose. I have a secondary comment. Is that okay, or
Yeah.
should I wait? Okay, thanks. So my secondary comment is coming specifically from Planning and Zoning with regards to our most recent meeting, and I believe you will see some of these cases in front of you in November. We had a homeowner that came to us that had placed a shed on their property approximately a year and a half ago, not realizing that it was not within the purview of the village to do so without asking for a variance. The Planning and Zoning Committee rejected that based on feedback that we'd gotten from the board. The homeowners at the time stated that if they had to take their shed down, that they would then have to store their items on their property, and I'm paraphrasing this, so I apologize if it's not completely accurate, with a tarp, covered in a tarp. And so, of course, we were concerned about what kind of precedent that was leading. And so we had asked if our current code has anything against storage on property that may be, unsightly or in a right-of-way or anywhere in that might be encumbering like water flow or anything like that. And I believe at the time Andy said that we do not have that in our code. I know that we're talking about revising our code. I would strongly encourage the board to think about having planning and zoning review things like storage in the yard, political signs, anything like that, leaving yard decorations up all year round. I think those would be viable things that you might want to consider having looked at for that revision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle, before you walk away, can I ask you a quick question? On
Sure.
that, I watched that meeting online. That
Yeah.
person was specifically talking about mostly their lawn furniture, like on their deck.
I think they said it was lawn furniture, and I believe they also said landscaping equipment because they did all their own yard work.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, one of the residents also stated that they were concerned because of the increased number of theft that we had in the village. So they felt like their items were more secure in a shed that was locked as opposed to in their yard covered in a tarp, which is a viable concern, I would guess. And I'm certainly not here advocating for sheds. I'm just saying that I think as we kind of move through this, we're going to encounter some additional issues that are going to need to be addressed. And if we don't have something in the code for them, it's going to be really hard to continue to enforce that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yep, Frank?
Hi, I'm Frank Lesh, 6411 Indian Head Court. I have a comment, and I talked to Mayor Henshaw just briefly, who suggested I talk to Rob, the engineer, about the engineering study for the 45 acres. And I don't know if this is premature to talk about it now, but Rob did say that if the village wanted to revise a little walk around or something, they'd be happy to look at my property. What my concern was, since I'm not being stopped, was that in the beginning of the first paragraph on page 5 of the report, it said that the engineering firm walked around with the village officials and any neighbors who had complaints about anything who happened to be outside and talk to them. Well, obviously I don't stand around all day waiting for people to walk through the neighborhood and to talk to them, but if I had known ahead of time, I certainly would have bent somebody's ear about the problem I've had, which I've addressed to the village several times, and the village has come out over the years, over the past 30 years since Wolf Road was raised, to try to alleviate the problem we've got. But on page 5 of the report, the thing that really irked me was right over here. This is my house, and this is there's a retention pond in front of the house, which is fine. It's designed to hold water, but all the water from Wolf Road just comes down through my backyard, floods it, and village officials have been out looking at it over the years. And that was specifically said in the report that this was not an area of concern. I brought that up to Rob, and he said, well, he wasn't aware of that. But anyway, I wanted to reiterate that. Now, Andy came out with a couple other people a few months ago and showed me the original plot of survey that was maybe a road was supposed to be going someplace it didn't. And the engineer said, well, maybe that would have alleviated the problem. I don't know. But anyway, the village is aware of the problem. I'm just concerned that I was not brought in on this to give my concerns.
Excuse me, what's your address?
6411 Indian Head Court.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Lori, and again, there is another opportunity at the end of the meeting, but Lori, keep going.
Yeah.
If
Lori Davis, 6482 Apache. Have we made any headway about posting information? I haven't seen anything about grants that we have applied for and whether they were accepted or declined.
I believe Tom brought that up at the last meeting, and John and I have had several discussions about it. I don't think anything formally has been done, but we've talked about a couple options, so I think there will be something. If you can just hang in there a little bit longer, there will be information on the grants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Amy Eckert, 102 Cascade. You mentioned in your Acacia Drive update, it was 99% complete, but you didn't mention anything about landscaping yet. Now, I know the plan we've been told was this October. It's mid-October. Is anything going to get done this year?
Andy?
Yes, so they will actually start planting trees late this week or next week.
Oh, okay. And is that all they intend to do is plant trees?
They're going to plant trees, and they're going to plant like flowers in the, what would you call them? The
Medians?
islands.
Islands?
Yeah, and then there's other stuff too, but I don't know off the top of my head. And then they're going to put some, I believe, wood chips on the empty patches where the bushes
were?
used to be.
Okay.
And then they're watering the sod.
Yes.
Currently.
They water even while it's raining, just so you know.
Of course. They're very nervous about it not taking.
Sure
so
they are.
And I believe we're waiting on Comcast to finish some work. Is that right,
Friday?
Andy?
Yeah, we're
Friday?
Yep. Comcast is going to be doing work tomorrow, and then we're also waiting on ComEd to turn on the street lights at the exits to Wolf.
Oh, that'll be nice. The other thing you said, you worked on a punch list. Is the retaining wall between Village Hall, north of here, by Nakona, is that finished?
No.
Oh, thank you. Because I was going to say the top of it doesn't
The
look done.
capstone has to be put on.
Okay. That was my question. Thanks.
That's in the 1%.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie Campbell, 6408 Pontiac Drive. This gentleman earlier said that he had located a copy of the stormwater study, the results. Is that available online or?
It's part of the board packet.
I'm
Yes.
sorry?
The report we're talking about tonight is part of the board packet online.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Again, there is another opportunity. I don't see anybody raising their hand or moving. Okay. Go to the consent agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as established.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rita and Chris. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I forgot to
No, you're
look
good.
your way. We're going to go back a second and public comment. Sometimes we get an email, and that's what you have, right, Andy?
Yes. So this is from resident Dale Holmquist. As the trustees review plans for the proposed Dunkin' Donuts store at the Triangle, please be sure that ingress and egress to the site doesn't create new safety issues. Residents need to be assured it will remain a safe intersection. It's busy and congested there, especially during morning rush hour when consumers will be turning in to buy their coffees. Is there a potential conflict with this store and Oak Pantry and their morning business? Comments, please.
Thank you, Andy. Is that it? Okay, sorry about that. Consent agenda, any questions or comments? Maureen, are you ready to give a financial summary?
So at the beginning of September, cash on hand was $3 million. It was a strong month of revenue of $892,000, of which $253,000 was federal funds received from the American Rescue Plan Act. Warrants for the month, nothing out of the ordinary, were $390,000, leaving an ending bank balance of $3.5 million.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any comments or questions from the board. Clerk Allison, could we please have a roll call vote?
Aye.
Trustee Metz?
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, that has been approved, and I'm sorry I didn't say there are agendas up front. We have a sign-in sheet, so my apologies. We address new business item A. Item B, the first look at the Vine Street PUD amendment.
Andy will take that.
Andy?
Yeah, so we have here our first look for a possible PUD, a triangle PUD amendment. Yes, thank you, David. There's our property in question. And so tonight, Lissa and Tony Coolant are here to talk about their proposal, which essentially that parcel, it's the bottommost parcel there. It has two buildings. There's the Salon Suites on Wolf Road, and then on Vine Street, there is a home that's been used for business purposes, and they're here tonight to talk about their proposal for what to do with that home And also, while we have the chance, I would also like to publicly thank Tony again for his work with the car show. We really appreciate your help. So, but with that, do you two want to come up and just give a little presentation on what you're thinking?
Andy, right before Tony speaks, can you explain kind of what the first look process is about, please?
Yeah, so this is in the Triangle PUD plan unit development, which is kind of establishes a zoning process for any kind of development or major changes in the zoning code in that area. And in this case, that property is zoned B3. And to change its use would require amending the plan unit development, and it would probably also require subdividing the parcel into the home and then also to the salon suites, which is B3.
And I believe, and you may have said it, I'm sorry, but part of the process is to get any feedback from the board, either yes, we agree, or we don't like it, or here's questions, right?
Yeah, the first step really is to come to the board and kind of get a feel of what they think so that you don't waste your time going through the planning and zoning process and approval process if they're not interested. So it's to save time and money and also to introduce the board to the topic too. So
sorry about that, Tony.
No, it's exactly what I was going to say. Even better. He's hit all the points that we needed to go over. So I'll leave it at that. We're just thinking more of if we had a dual purpose for residential as well as commercial, we could, maybe lease it to a small family instead of a commercial business, or have the choice to, by the way.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So I know where the salon suites are. Are you talking about one of the houses that faces Vine Street?
Correct.
Okay.
It's on the lower left on the
Yeah.
picture.
The last one on that side of the street.
It was previously, until now,
Yeah,
a business
correct.
operated out of
Yes.
there?
A roofing business.
Okay.
It still is, in fact. It's just, we're looking at the future.
Did you say you want to lease it out, or because did I see that you had that for sale, or am I wrong on that?
No, the neighbor is for sale. We're leasing ours. We're keeping it.
Okay.
For as long as we can. Any other questions?
Yeah, and you're just looking to, right now it's a business, so it could stay a business, but you're looking for an opportunity for it to be a business or a residence.
Well, correct. Yes.
That's all you're
If it's
asking for?
possible. Yep.
Okay.
Just to get the other people, diversify. Perfect.
Any other comments or feedback for Tony?
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say, I think we need to look at that carefully. I don't think we want to encourage single-family residential there because of our PUD. Understand what you're trying to do. But on the other hand, we're trying to do something differently with that property. So I don't know, it's something for the board to figure out, something for us to discuss.
Chris, I've got a similar sentiment as well. Thank you.
All we can do is ask.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, next item, the first look at Dunkin' Donuts at Wolf and Joliet Road for the PUD development. Andy, is this you again?
Yes, it is. And so right there is the intersection with the parcel. And tonight, Luigi is here to give us a presentation on the Dunkin' Donuts proposal for that site. And I'll leave the details to him, but it's the same scenario in which it's within the plan unit development. It'll have to go through the planning and zoning process and eventually come to the board. And this is our first look. Luigi, you want to take it away?
Hello. Good evening. So I'm Luigi with Keystone, the architect for the project. So we were asked to come tonight to present an initial concept for this corner on Joliet and Wolf. And so,
David, one more, I think. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Thanks. So following this meeting, we would then work through our formal application to the Planning and Zoning Department with further documentation. So for tonight, we just have the architectural site plan that's on the screen before you there. So, so this parcel is about a third of an acre, and what we want to do is use the existing curb cuts. One directly connects to Wolf Road, the other connects to Joliet Road. So Those are in place today, and we're infilling the site from there. So what we're proposing is this is an 800 square foot single-story building. It would be for a Dunkin' Donuts, a drive-through building, and so we have compliant parking. We would have a single lane drive-through circulating the building, and then just have the two-way driveway from the two main roads as people are coming in and out. So just a timeline on what we would potentially be looking to do here. So after tonight, we would have a traffic consultant, civil engineers, further develop the architectural, develop the exterior of the building, submit in November for potentially a December plan commission, and so that would result in, we would hope to break ground in spring of next year if all goes well, and we're looking forward to being a part of the community. So happy to answer any questions.
I had a question. Someone else has come before us with a Dunkin' Donuts proposal for this site as well. And what troubled them was that the county may take part of this property for a sidewalk. Are you aware of that, and have you considered that in your proposal?
We are aware of that, and I think what's known so far, I believe, is about 15 or 20 foot might be taken as part of a parkway on, I believe, Wolf Road. And so our site plan that's drawn would work with that.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the curb cuts. Are those, maybe this is not necessarily a question for you, but is that up to the county and the state? John, I think
I'm sorry.
The curb cuts, is that up to the county and the state? Because
County
of
and the state.
So,
Control that.
or can you just keep the existing, or if you change them, do you have to go through them?
My
or-
conversation with the county and the state is both can stay as existing. That would have to be confirmed, though, but from the state and the county, yes.
Okay.
You can have the right in, right out. And we did not get this slide until today, so that's why it's not in the board packet. We will give it in a supplemental information.
I have a question. How much parking will you have, if any? And is it strictly drive-through, or will there be some in-service too?
So the primary function of the building would be drive-through. There is a walk-up window for mobile orders, and so there's more than enough parking here, more than what the staff would be inside, and so there is an opportunity for customers to come and park. But we anticipate most of the traffic or the customers would be drive-through.
Drive-through.
Yeah.
Can I ask Luigi, so right now, and it's hard to see on here, so it looks like the entrance off of Joliet is only if you're traveling east, and the entrance off of Wolf is only if you're traveling south. If somebody misses, say, the Wolf Road entrance, they will not be able to get to the drive-through if they continue south to the current Triangle parking lot. So there's no egress between the current parking lot that we have and your design right now, correct? For automobile traffic, anyway.
So you're saying if someone misses it southbound, there's no way to come around?
Well, there's no way to get into your drive-through without having to go back out either on Joliet Road or Wolf Road.
That's correct. Right now, there's no interconnection to, I know there's some retail right south of here. So, I mean, we could look into that if we need, But the way it's drawn right now, you're correct. They would have to go back out to the main road.
Thank you.
Luigi, thanks for coming tonight. My question is, do you know how many of the drive-through only or walk-up window with drive-through Dunkin' Donuts go in? Is it gaining in popularity? Is it the norm?
A lot of the newer sites are going this route. We're seeing them popping up in all different suburbs. More often than not, a Dunkin' Donuts would always want to have a drive-through. And this is just on that side of the spectrum versus just an inline store without drive-through. So yeah, this is quite popular.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody want to weigh in and say good idea, bad idea to help Luigi?
I think it's a good idea. We need something up there.
I agree.
Sounds like they've accommodated the some of the logistics of the neighboring retail area to make it exclusively for themselves and go through. And it looks like you got, what, like 3 or 4 spaces for customers to drive in?
Yeah, that's correct.
Anybody else? Well, thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
And no obligation to stay for the rest of the meeting.
All right, thank you all.
Okay, next item, would somebody like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to pass based on the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Ordinance 2022-34, an ordinance allowing for the continued use of a fence at 11399 Sequoia.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Rita and Charlie. Andy?
Yes, thank you. So with us tonight is Mr. John Amico, who is the homeowner for that address, and he is petitioning to keep for an existing fence. This fence in particular, this may win the award for the oldest fence in town. I know everybody says that every time, but this one from our research is at least 60 years old. It likely goes back further to when there was a farm there in the 1800s, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to treat it the same way that other fences have been treated for special uses. The petitioner's neighbors are all in favor of keeping it. A couple of them actually came to the meeting that they want to keep it. And with that, John, do you have anything to add, or do you want to come up in case there's any questions? Or
I think you said it perfectly. I'm new to the city. I love Indian Head Park. It's been just a wonderful experience. I really enjoy trees, and the nature is great. So when I moved in, I received a notice about the fence, and I had gone to the neighbors because I wasn't familiar with the particular zoning. They're all like, no, this thing's been here forever. We want the fence. I'm like, okay, sign this here. So anyway, it is, the neighbors would like to keep the fence. I'm happy with the fence. It's fine. The zoning committee did say that this would be the last of the fences, meaning that if and when I sell the home, it'll be removed before the sale. And any time between now and then, if I would desire to remove it, they said that it could be removed as well. So it really is just, there's a time on this fence. It's not going to be there probably another 70 years, because unless they have something for me to live that long.
And for everybody's information, this is in the board packet, and it's pictures start on page 49 for anybody interested.
There's also printouts for the trustees.
Oh, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
So where's it at on the property? Is it on either side or one side?
It is, yeah, it's actually surrounds the home in the back. So it is on the east, south, and west side of the home in the back.
You can barely see that fence.
I know, it's yeah, it really camouflages by the growth is all, grows through it. It's been there a long time, yeah.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
Does either the homeowner or Andy or Planning and Zoning have a opinion as to if this was to come down? It looks like it would take a lot of foliage with it if it was to come down. It looks like it's been intertwined with it over decades.
Correct, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
so there was definitely some concern with that, but that time will come. I just don't know when, but hopefully not for a while.
Yeah, I mean, our thoughts right now are, when the time does come, if some of the fence has to be left within a tree, then so be it. We don't want to take down the trees for that, but yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you seriously think it dates back to the 1800s?
Not this one.
That is what I received from one of his neighbors. So yeah.
Okay.
Any other? Okay, Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
No? Okay, all right. Trustee Eck?
Aye.
And Trustee Farrell, would you repeat that, please?
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Donnersberger?
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy?
Aye.
Trustee Metz?
Aye.
And Trustee O'Loughlin is absent. So we have this passed.
All right, that's been approved. Thank you. Next item up is the audit. I believe Jamie is here. Do we have a beginning, John, or do we go right to Jamie?
I would request a motion to accept the audit, and then I will make comments.
Somebody like to make a motion?
That's probably.
Where are we? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the annual audit as presented.
Thank you, Chris and Eileen. Now, John, do you want to make some
Please,
comments?
thank you. So this is my 34th audit, and although all of my audits have been clean, which means there are no financial irregularities, this is probably the one I'm most proud of. I've been very consistent in what I'm about to say for my entire career, especially in the village. I think that the audit is the most important document that we produce in any given year. It is a statement of our financial practices and the integrity of the information that the finance manager, Helia Garbaz, and I present to you on a monthly basis. Basically, what we are telling you every month is, in fact, accurate. For those of you who don't like numbers, and the audit is 100 pages plus, I would request that you look at the second paragraph on the very first page of the auditor's letter. This is the Cliff Notes version, which basically says that in all material respects, the information that we present to the board is in fact accurate. It's what makes us a community and your board responsive to you as the public, the integrity of our financial records. Helia took the major lead on this audit, and she's been doing this since she came here. Every year she gets more and more involved in it. This is Lauterbach and Amon's first audit with the village. We go out periodically to switch up the audit team to make sure that what we're being charged for the audit is reasonable. Lauterbach and Amon has an excellent reputation. Their references are impeccable, and we are glad to have them on. And the audit went very smoothly. We were not at any time under the guise of, oh my God, this is missing, what's going on, somebody's going to jail. It's not the case. So they conducted the audit very professionally, kindly, and they got the information they wanted. There's not a lot for us to have, so it went very well. I'm really proud that the audit is a clean audit. We have one comment in the management letter about better memorializing assets, fixed assets in the water department, meaning we just won't rely on memory anymore when we put a water main in. And our GIS system that we're implementing will help us with that. So, Jamie, without further ado, thank you.
Well, thank you. I think you've done my job for me tonight, though. So
Jennifer,
I appreciate that. Yes. So we appreciate you having us this evening. Just want to give a couple of key highlights. As John indicated, the village received what we call a clean or unmodified opinion. I just want to point out that is the highest level opinion that the village can receive. I also want to point out that as part of that process, we are required to take a look at overall internal controls for the village. As John indicated, we had no findings, areas of concern, red flags, any of those types of discussions that we would have to have with the board this evening. So truly the cleanest audit opinion that can be issued. I do also want to point out one other section of the document, usually important from any board member's perspective, that is on pages 5 through 15 of the audit report. It encompasses what we call management's discussion and analysis. I know at this point in the year, most of that information is now historical, but the team did put together a nice executive summary to the audit, If the board members have not read that section yet, I would encourage you to do so. You'll get kind of a nice, easy read of the rest of the 85 pages that are included in that document. So quite a bit to digest, and that really does serve as the executive summary. Happy to open it up for any questions that you all might have for us, but just to reiterate the clean audit process, I also want to thank the staff. I think I got lots of feedback that our staff really enjoyed working with the team here. It was definitely a good team effort, so we certainly appreciate the cooperation and kindness given to us as well.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Can anything be added to this? The financial statements are fairly presented and prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's pretty clean.
That is clean.
That's very clean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, but especially thank you to Helia and John for maintaining terrific finances in our village.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't hear or see any other questions. A voice vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. That has been approved. Next item up. The stormwater, John, is that right?
Yeah, let's just. Yeah, before. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, before you, the stormwater management studies. Thomas Engineering, one of our village engineers, spent a lot of time working on this report, and it's a lot of pages. So, Rob, it's all yours. Thank you.
So Rob, before you go, I got a quick announcement. Sorry. So for any residents who are interested in asking a question related to stormwater in general or this study, we ask that you either submit them on our online portal, and we'll answer them there. We'll create a FAQ for our stormwater page on our website, or there is also paper forms here. If you want to take one, write down your question. You can leave it with me or put it in that box over there. We'll take them and we'll add that to the FAQ. So thank you. Take it away, Rob.
Mayor, trustees, village manager, thank you for inviting us here tonight. My name is Rob Flatter. I am a senior project manager with Thomas Engineering. Also with me tonight is Kevin Van de Woestijn. He is our municipal department head and one of the principals of the company.
Rob, can you move the mic closer, please?
Sure.
We do record this, and sometimes...
Is that better?
Thank you.
Okay. I do have left some business cards on the table here to the side if anybody wants to grab a business card as they go. I put together a PowerPoint presentation to go through the comprehensive stormwater report that we did put together. I'll try to go through it quickly here for you guys. So we were hired, Thomas Engineering was hired by the village to evaluate drainage conditions in the what we call, or what has been known as the 45 acres, which consist of the Hayden, Woodland Hills, and the Western Builders Indian Village subdivisions. We were asked to take a look at the existing conditions, impacts on downstream properties, and we were also asked to look at 4 localized drainage conditions that the village has received some concern on in the past. The area that we looked at, as I said, is what we call 45 acres. Big picture is bound by Wolf Road and Flag Creek, Plainfield Road and Joliet. More specifically, it's those 2 subdivisions that I mentioned previously. The Hayden's Woodland Hills subdivision was originally built in circa 1974 as a 72-lot subdivision. North of Cherokee Drive, Western Builders is a 35-lot subdivision built south of Cherokee Drive. Both subdivisions were built with essentially 1974 standards, very minimal stormwater management control. Very minimal storm sewers, not a very large regional detention basin, but a number of small basins throughout the subdivision. Hayden's subdivision was originally designed and we assume built with 15 detention basins, 7 of them on private property. Western Builders subdivision, I'll refer to it as Westerns, was built with 4 detention basins, one of them being a large basin on private property, 2 smaller ones in the backyards, and 1 in the public right-of-way. Total of 19 depressional areas or detention basins were constructed or designed. When we look at it today, there's only 13 out there. We're not able to obtain any individual site development plans. When the subdivision was originally designed, it was kind of like a mass development, and each individual lot, we assume what individual permits were pulled at a later point in time. So as you build individual lots, typically drainage, localized drainage through those lots is altered from the master plan somewhat. We were not able to confirm to what degree that occurred, or any of those individual lots that were supposed to have had a depressional area in their properties, how that may have been altered. Storm sewer, we did identify that the storm sewer in these subdivisions is a 4-inch to 6-inch diameter storm sewer. By today's standards, that is substandard. Today we design for what we call a 10-year storm event, and typically the minimum storm sewer size is 12-inch. So the storm sewer out there is small compared to today's design standards. So to gain an understanding of the existing conditions, as was mentioned earlier, one of the things that we did is we did meet with village staff, we did walk the area, and we did speak with a number of residents that happened to be out as we were going through. We did not, in hindsight, maybe we should have, we didn't send out a mailer, we didn't knock on everybody's door. We were focusing our study and our evaluation based upon information we received from village staff and what we were seeing out there at the time. General complaints as it was relayed to us was not so much my basement floods or my structure floods, it's I got water in my yard, I'm receiving water from my neighbor, storm sewer surcharges or bubbles, and it's running down the street in a rain event. We did notice that there's a significant amount, and it's not uncommon, significant amount of landscaping around the perimeters of a lot of the backyards. A lot of homeowners want to define their property boundaries. They want the aesthetic look of landscaping. Sometimes they do use it to block drainage that they're receiving from their neighbors. But there is an extensive amount of rear yard perimeter landscaping, and that typically tends to create an altered condition, a blockage of drainage, a filling in of a swale, throughout most subdivisions that get developed. Most of the properties do have shallow side yard swales, which means as the drainage comes into the backyard, it tends to go toward the public right-of-way in a small swale between the 2 homes. And as I mentioned before, there is 13 detention basins out there today. This illustration is the Hayden subdivision. It illustrates the location of the detention basins as they were originally designed in 1974 and what they are today. The blue and the yellow are what's out there today. The purple is non-existent. There is one area on Apache Drive up toward the north where the detention basin, the depressional areas we know in the public right-of-way we noticed has been replaced with twin 36-inch storm sewers. Similarly, in the western subdivision, we have essentially the same thing. The blue is the large detention basin that's on Sauk Trail. Yellow is a couple of small rear yard, almost drainage ditch type of situations. And the purple no longer exists, but that some time ago was replaced with twin 36-inch storm sewer. We assume that was done by the village, but we have no record of exactly when or why it was replaced. So the first thing we did is we developed a stormwater model. We want to try to understand what's happening with stormwater runoff. The stormwater model looks at it on a very large scale. It can, but it gets very, very expensive. If we were to go into everybody's yard and do a detailed survey, we can start looking at individual flooding conditions, but the stormwater model that we developed looked at 8 of the 13 detention basins that exist out there, the larger ones. It looked at a general assumption, how does drainage flow across the subdivision? As I mentioned before, it sheet flows through the backyard. We used DuPage County contours, GIS data from the village. We make some logical assumptions. Water drains from point A to point B. What's the impervious ratio to pervious? What's the slope? How fast will it get there? Again, we don't break it down on an individual lot basis. So this study will not and did not identify if a particular backyard has an isolated flooding condition. It assumes water's going to flow through the yards. It assumes it's going to make it to the detention basin. We make some assumption as to how fast, and then we model the actual basins. So what we did is we created the model. Once the model was created, we actually simulate the model under 49 different rainfall events. We use statistical data where we look at 7 rainfall events, the 1-year, 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 25, 50, and 100-year event. Many people have heard of the 100-year event. It's the big one. And then we looked at 7 different durations. If it rained for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, 6 hour, 12 hour, 18, and a 24-hour period. We used Illinois State Water Survey rainfall statistical data. I can't speak. Most current Bulletin 75. Prior to 2020, Bulletin 70 was the data that was used. And Bulletin 70, for comparison, was 7.58 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. We're starting to see more rain. We're starting to see more flooding conditions. So the state, through University of Illinois, they did an evaluation and they determined that 7.58 inches of rain is no longer reasonable for our area, and they changed it to what they call now Bulletin 75, which is 8.57 inches of rain in a 24-hour period.
Rob, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When was the 7.58 on Bulletin 70 updated? What kind of time frame are we talking about between those two?
You're talking about when Bulletin 70 was originally developed?
Yeah, so the 7.58 now at 8.57, what's the time frame between those?
I don't know the exact date, but I believe it was early 80s when Bulletin 70
so 40
was
years.
developed.
Definitely before 1989.
Okay. Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, we use a rainfall statistical data, and it's actually a table that breaks down event to duration. I mentioned 8.57 inches is the 100-year event over a 24-hour period. By the same token, 4.03 inches of rain over a 1-hour period is also a 100-year event. But you can get 4 inches of rain over a 3-hour period, and it becomes a 25-year event.
Now, Rob, when you say 100-year event, you mean a 1% chance of happening every year?
That is correct, and that's very important to understand. A 100-year event does not mean once every 100 years. It means you have a 1% chance per year of that happening. It could happen 3, 4, 8 times. You can get, in this particular case, 8.57 inches of rain, or if you look at the table, you could get 4.03 in 1 hour. You know, there's a number of of there's 7 different situations where you could have a 1% chance that that event's going to occur and be called the 100-year event. So using this data, we feed it through the model to see how, not so much how water is going to flow across each individual lot, but how water is going to flow in and out of the detention basins that exist. As I mentioned, we looked at 8 detention basins, and this map illustrates the location of those, and those are the larger depressional areas. We did not look at, as was mentioned, I believe by Frank earlier, we did not look at the 2 basins that are up in the upper, the northeast corner of the subdivision, and we didn't look at the 2 basins that are down at the southern end because those are relatively small. The tributary area to them is relatively small, and that was honestly was not an area of concern that was expressed to us by the village at the time. If city council or village board, excuse me, I'm used to city council from my old job. Village board, is that something you'd like us to look at? We're certainly willing to take a look at that if necessary. So we modeled 8 different basins, and what we found on each of those situations was before I get there, we developed a table that actually for all of those 49 events will give us a flood elevation, a maximum elevation, according to the model, that basin's going to fill up at. And what we actually found was it wasn't those larger long duration events that causes the highest flood elevation. It was the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 1.5 to 4 inches of rain, that quick burst that we get that comes and goes. That was causing the highest flood elevations. We took the data the highest elevation for each year event, and we actually mapped it using topographical information on each detention area. And what we were trying to look at here is, one, based on survey, what's the highest elevation water could get in that basin? Based on survey, what's the overflow? And how high does it actually get based on the model? Does it overtop? Does it spill onto the neighbors? Does it stay specifically contained in the basin? And for all 8 of these, what the results produced was none of them overtop. None of them fill up and overtop. They all collect, they all store, but none of them fill up and overtop. None of them, based on comparing the flood elevations to the individual properties, none of them appeared to reach any residential structure or cause flooding for any residential structure. So it appears, even though we're looking at 1 more inch of rain over a 24-hour period, even though I mentioned before that the storm sewer is small compared to today's standards, it appears that everything out there is functioning as originally designed, meaning it's capturing runoff, it's storing runoff, it's not causing residential structures to flood, which is a good thing. Now, we're not saying there's not individual or certain spots where backyard flooding is occurring. We're not saying that these ponds have never overtopped. There's some reports from the village staff that people have reported that they've overtopped. Why? Our only assumption and our belief is maintenance. When we walked and looked, there's a number of storm inlets throughout the subdivision, in the backyards, in these depressional detention areas. A number of storm inlets that at the time that we walked were covered with debris. Some of them the residents have even attempted to put chicken wire or mesh over to keep the debris from getting in. When you restrict the opening, things tend to plug a little faster. When you cover, or when the grates, the inlets, the structures that drain those ponds, when they become covered with debris, they're not going to drain. They're going to fill up faster than they should. This is the picture on the left is actually a picture of a storm drain that's covered with leaves, and the picture on the right, if you get real close, you can actually see the structure. Leaves are one of the things that quickly will plug a storm drain and cause flooding to back up. So in our opinion, the system out there is functioning as intended, and it's really a maintenance issue. Now, we did go through village records, those that we could find, and we did find that there, for these two subdivisions for 45 acres, there is a covenant out there that does require the homeowners to maintain these detention basins and these storm drains on their property.
Can you explain that covenant a little better? Where I've lived in 45 acres for over 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have a detention area on the side of my house and in the back, and I'm not familiar with this covenant.
Yeah. We did not pull individual property documents. A lot of covenants, when covenants are passed, and certainly the village attorney can speak on this much better than I can, when covenants are passed and adopted, typically they should be tied to a PIN number, and when you close on your property, you should get, if there's a homeowners association, you should get the homeowners association covenants, as if there's specific covenants that have been passed by the village that are related to that PIN number, you should get those at the time of closing. You may not have. A lot of people don't pay attention to the closing documents. It's a stack of papers.
I read that stuff.
Sign here, sign here, sign here.
I don't recall ever seeing anything
and
like
you may
that.
not have gotten it. But like I said, we did find a letter, specifically in this case from 1978, where the village did send a letter to the residents at that time identifying there is a covenant. And basically, here's what it said. Each homeowner purchaser shall be responsible for maintaining, et cetera, et cetera.
So apparently this is something we need to make sure residents are aware of.
I would strongly suggest, yes, that you share that with them in some form or fashion. Yes.
Because mine has overtopped a few times, not often, but it's, so I imagine the problem could be further down where things are blocked.
And things are blocked, like it's going back to the private property landscaping, where enhancements done on a particular property that are now blocking drainage or slowing drainage. Again, it's a regional thing. What one homeowner does will impact the person upstream, et cetera. The guy downstream or the person downstream, if they don't maintain, keep the sewers clean, it could all have a chain effect, absolutely. There were some, as I mentioned before, there were a couple locations, Thunderbird Lane, Big Bear Drive, Apache Drive, where we did identify that the storm sewer in the public right-of-way is, in our opinion, undersized. These are areas that kind of matched with village staff telling us, hey, when we get some significant rain, these storm sewers surcharge. And then the residents call us because water is rushing down the street. In a rural environment, ditching is the conveyance mechanism for residential right-of-way, for streets. When you take the ditching away, which in a lot of the ditches, and as I mentioned before, the depressional areas in this subdivision don't exist, water is now forced to drain and run across the front yard or in the street to get where uphill, downhill. That's a good thing, in my opinion. I'd rather see it bubble out and surcharge and stay in the street or stay in the parkway rather than get in somebody's backyard or get in somebody's house. Can the village go in and do some sort of a regional storm sewer upgrade? Sure. But that can be very costly, and that typically will require some sort of a regional detention basin, even bigger than what's out there, to be constructed, because it's going to get the water there faster. And the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to start upgrading storm sewers without looking at the downstream impacts. If we take it from point A to point B faster, how is it going to impact the person downstream? So I think I covered most of what I had to cover for what we call the 45 acres comprehensive stormwater management report. That report, I believe village manager has indicated, it was in the packet. I do believe it was being made available online, but if you need access, Thomas can also provide that. I mentioned we were also asked to look at 4 localized drainage conditions. One of those drainage conditions was a property on Blackhawk Trail, just downstream of what we call what we define as detention basin 4. There was a storm structure that oftentimes would surcharge, run onto that residential property. Our model actually included that storm sewer system because it was associated with detention basin 4. Our model identified that the village could actually raise that storm structure up approximately 1 inch, and that should eliminate that surcharging in most conditions. I do believe the village has taken care of that. I don't believe we've gotten a storm event big enough to identify if it worked, but that is one drainage condition that we did identify could be easily corrected.
I'm not sure I understand what raised something up 1 inch. What is getting raised?
Storm sewer pipes drain into a storm structure, a catch basin or a manhole. And that catch basin or manhole has a frame and lid on it, in some situations to accept water, in some situations just to simply prevent access into that structure. This particular one was what we call a closed lid. It's a metal grate closed lid to prevent access but allow maintenance should public works staff need to. So when that water flows through the pipes, hits that storm structure, it would, as the detention basin fills, water seeks its own equilibrium, it would push the lid up and water would come out the structure and drain toward the residential property. So we actually suggested that they take that metal frame off, add a 1 inch concrete ring and reset the frame, and just making that overflow point, that spill point out of that structure through that frame 1 inch higher should be enough to eliminate that situation. So it's just taking the overflow point and raising it up just a little bit. Another localized drainage area that we were asked to look at, there is a very large ditch, or gully, that actually drains detention basin, what we call D7 in our report. It drains it from Blackhawk Trail through some residential properties over to Pontiac Drive. It's an area that, in doing our research, we found some letters that it's been a drainage issue all the way back to 1995 and probably even earlier. It is a very critical and a very major drainage way, as I said, because it does drain 45 acres, detention basin 7, down toward Flag Creek. This is an illustration of that general drainage ditch. Comes off of Blackhawk Trail. It's about 500 feet long. There's a couple of 90-degree bends. Most of this drainage area is riprap lined. Village has gone in there over the years, and the records that we found indicated when it was originally built there was a number of railroad timbers or some sort of timber that lined the ditch. Those over the years have been removed. Riprap or stone has been placed in the ditch. And really, when we looked at this, what we found is the ditch was clean, is being maintained very well, does not appear to have any. A lot of times when in these ditches and these drainage areas, they can be used as fly dumping areas. That wasn't the case. It's being very well maintained, and for the most part, drainage is unobstructed through this area. The ditch does go into a closed system when it gets between two homes, about 150 feet or so of closed storm sewer pipe, and all water enters that pipe through a inlet grate. This was one area of concern because inlet grates, as you can see here, can typically become plugged with debris and leaves, very similar to a storm grate in somebody's backyard. If it's not maintained, if it's not clean, it could block flow, it could cause a backup effect. So this again is part of what we saw out there. It does appear that the village has been diligent at trying to keep this clean. The neighbors, having the neighbors also assist with keeping this clean would be a tremendous benefit to making sure the drainage system works. This drainage, there's a picture of what we were looking at when we actually walked the drainage ditch. One of the things we did notice, though, that this whole area is has a very large tree canopy. It's wooded. When you have a very large tree canopy, what you don't have is understory growth. And when you don't have understory growth, you get a lot of erosion, which causes, some, as you can see in this picture, root structure of trees to be exposed. Trees tend to die a little faster, and sticks, branches tend to fall, and that could all add to ongoing maintenance issues. We did talk to village staff. They did not indicate to us that they are aware of any residential structures being flooded as a result of this drainage ditch between the two properties. Really, it appears to just be a maintenance concern. When we looked at as I mentioned, the grate, really the only true maintenance concern that stood out for me was that grate. What are some practical approaches to solving that issue? You can remove the grate, but then you have an open pipe situation where the pipe could easily become plugged, or even worse, it could become a confined space concern for a small child or something like that. So really, in my opinion, the grate needs to remain. Increased maintenance and, as I said before, assistance from the property owner seems to be the most logical and reasonable thing associated with that.
I have a question. This is actually my home that you're talking about. And we do, believe me, we have many times my husband's gone out in pouring rain and swept away things so it wouldn't be, because our yard becomes flooded, our window wells have become flooded, and we have had water come into the house. So I think this is a situation where homeowners should have been contacted and talked to, because the only time I really talked to anybody, I was out watering my flowers this summer in my backyard, and I believe 2 men from your company were out in the back, and I told them what was going on. So my question is, what about the idea of a larger drainage pipe? I noticed you mentioned the swale. I've never understood that to be part of the system. That, to me, all the pipes should be able to take all of that water, and it shouldn't be running over the top and flooding our yards and my neighbor's yard as well.
The swale I'm about to talk about, so good segue. I'm going to go back a little bit to what I said before. Storm sewer, enclosed pipe. Typically, when you have a storm sewer system, it's for a smaller storm event. In a rural environment, a rural situation, the best thing to do is have the ditch. Have the ditch be maintained, have the ditch open so that it can convey as much water as possible. When you take a large area and you enclose it with a small pipe and fill on top of that, you're losing some storage volume. You may be increasing the conveyance, moving it downstream faster, but you're losing storage volume. So in this situation, when the area between the homes, and I'm not sure when it happened, but when the area between the homes was replaced with a pipe, what should have happened and what you need is a clear and defined overflow, a swale, so that if the grate or if the pipe becomes plugged, it doesn't come into your property, it doesn't come into your home. It has somewhere to relieve. It can overtop and continue to drain downstream toward Flag Creek. I'm going to jump and come back. When we walked the property, it was not very clear to me if that swale really exists. What I did find, though, in reviewing village documents was back in 2002, the village hired the Farnsworth Group, an engineering company, to design an overflow swale. I don't know if that was ever constructed. It's been 20 some odd years. So if it was it altered? Did it fill in from erosion? I don't know. But what I can tell you today is it does not appear to be there. And my recommendation is to have this area surveyed. Let's find out if it's there. And if it's not, let's come up with an overflow design to continue to convey the water to ultimately this spillway. This is where the storm sewer daylights into. This I assume replaced an open ditch at one point in time. While I'm on this picture, another area of concern was the erosion that has developed around this spillway. We did share with village staff that it's our opinion that that should be filled in with stone, backfilled with some dirt, seed, and mat for erosion protection. But that's one of the things that we identified on this location that needs to be looked at is that overflow swale. Continued maintenance, good overflow swale as a secondary relief point should, for the most part, eliminate most of your concerns, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rob, if you can go back to that last picture.
Absolutely.
Can you cover that issue, right, the concrete and...
Oh, yeah, that's what I just mentioned before. This is the concrete spillway, that storm sewer pipe that goes between the homes, discharges into this concrete spillway. And this concrete spillway actually drains down to Pontiac. Then it goes into another pipe that goes under Pontiac, goes to west side? I'm getting my directions confused.
West side.
Goes to the west side into a timber-lined drainage ditch and continues on down toward Flag Creek. So this concrete spillway, and while we didn't research each property, its documents we reviewed tends to lead us to believe there's a 50-foot easement for this drainage ditch and for this spillway. It's our understanding the village has done maintenance in the past, but what's happening is as water does overtop, as water does drain from the residential homes, be it a downspout, a sump pump, or just overtop in the ditch, it's not making it into this concrete trough. It's kind of washing the area around the trough away. And it just needs to be, it's a maintenance issue. Just from time to time, somebody needs to look at it. They need to add a little dirt and keep the grass growing. Again, like I said in the drainage ditch, that understory, you need that root structure. You need that something to hold the dirt back. And when the grass is not there, the dirt washes away.
Thank you.
Okay. Localized drainage condition number 3 is what's been labeled as the Pontiac bubbler. By village staff. You can give Justin credit for that. 6419 Pontiac is the address where this is located. It is actually in the village right away. This is another downstream condition that actually accepts drainage from 3 detention basins in 45 acres. Detention Basin 1, 8, and 7, as we previously identified on the map. So those basins that are on the west side of the subdivision. What's happening here is when a rain event occurs, the village is getting called from either somebody driving by, a concerned resident. What they're seeing is a surcharge or a bubbling condition. Water's probably covering the structure, and it to many, it probably looks like a water main break. They're seeing water just bubbling out of the ground. No residential structures being flooded. It doesn't appear to be a severe flooding condition, although it's been reported that water does tend to overtop the street from time to time as it continues to drain down toward Flag Creek. But the real problem associated with this is that visual bubbling effect. So what's causing it? Essentially what you have happening here is you have drainage coming from upstream through a 21-inch pipe. It comes down to that storm structure. In that picture before shows the metal grate. That's kind of what we were talking about before. It hits that storm structure, so you have a 21-inch pipe coming into a structure that also has an 8-inch pipe coming from the south, and it's all draining out an 8-inch pipe. So simple math, 29 inches going out 8 inches, what's going to happen? It's going to back up, it's going to surcharge, and that surcharge effect is what you're seeing out there. I don't know why, no records of when this was built. I don't know if that 8-inch, what I call an 8-inch restriction, was put in because downstream properties were being impacted by upstream. Again, this is all tributary to 45 acres, which tells me it probably existed prior to 1974. But that restriction is what's causing the bubbling effect. It's not hurting anything. Our recommendation, Thomas Engineering recommendation is leave it alone. You can do something about it if you want. And essentially what you have to do is you have to make that downstream pipe, that 8-inch pipe, it has to be equal to or bigger than the receiving pipes, which means you have to replace it with a 21-inch pipe or a 24-inch pipe. But to do that, now you have to start modeling downstream to figure out if I let the water release and go through a bigger pipe, how is it going to impact downstream properties? So you just can't go in and in this situation, upsize the pipe without knowing how it's going to impact downstream. You can take the structure out and you can put the ditches back in. That's going to provide storage. May not be very popular to the property owner, but that's one thing you can do. You really, in order to do anything out there, you really need a model downstream to make sure you're not going to cause an adverse problem. Again, our recommendation is it's not a necessary expense for the village. Leave it alone. It works. It's just a perception. In my opinion, it's just a perception. We see the bubbling. The fourth area that we were asked to look at was properties over on Shabona that are receiving drainage from upstream properties. Essentially what you have happening is water is coming from upstream. There's no storm sewers associated. In upstream, when I say upstream, I'm talking about properties that abut Black Hawk Trail. There's no storm sewer in Black Hawk Trail. There's no storm sewers in these backyards, so everything's overland sheet flow. As it comes down onto this property, it's created an eroded channel across their backyard. It comes down and then turns and drains between a side yard swale, a relatively flat area. Does not appear to be a lot of positive pitch, but an area that we did identify, there's a number of downspouts that come together, sump pump discharge, a large patio in the backyard, a large deck. Concentrated flow is coming to one area between the homes, and it's created a lack of vegetation or an eroded swale in the backyard. All private property maintenance responsibility, in our opinion. Even if there was a drainage easement, that does not necessarily typically mean that the village is obligated to maintain it. Easements typically grant the right, but not the obligation. I don't believe there's easement exist in this situation. Illinois drainage laws, which is a number of laws and situations over the years, basically indicate that if drainage comes to you, you have to accept it and continue to allow it to come to you. You can maintain it, you can alter it as long as you don't cause downstream or adverse problems. You can alter it as long as you don't cause upstream backups. And this is just, in our opinion, a simple residential private property responsibility situation. We did provide in our report some recommendations of things that they can do: improve the swale, add a under drain system. And I'd like to point out what's different in this situation, a side yard swale versus the one we talked about earlier, is the one earlier is in a defined easement. It is critical as a major drainage way for upstream drainage, but more importantly, the village has a history of maintaining that easement area. That's the one I was talking about between Pontiac and Black Hawk Trail. But in our opinion, this is a residential situation to be addressed. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Kevin and I will be around till the end as well if people want to meet with us afterwards. We do have some display boards to show those flood detention basins on private property. I'll take any questions.
Before we get questions, John?
One comment I would like to make to the residents, people viewing. In January, first week of January, everybody in the area where you have the covenants that you might not know about will get a letter from the village just reminding them to maintain the storm drains, and we're just going to put this on our January mailing list just to remind people of their responsibility to maintain it on private property, and just to call the village if they notice any other problems.
And then we plan to resend that?
Every year.
Every year or every other year, periodically?
I have a quick comment or question, I guess, for Justin and Don. Could you guys give a brief kind of overview of like how you maintain or like what's the process for maintaining storm sewers, storm structures, including the ones that are on these properties?
And thank you for coming to the microphone, Justin.
Sure. So when there's a storm event, the guys, Pepe and Pedro, everyone kind of knows there's routine areas to hit they're kind of chronic to flooding or getting backed up. So the guys, they know to go out. Some of them are in backyards. We get calls on them, and just as a courtesy, in some of the backyards, we just go out and clear them the best we can. Some of them clear themselves. So every storm event, we're out there checking stuff, and then sometimes we miss stuff. We get phone calls and try to address it the best we can.
But you and the team, every medium to large rain that we got are out hitting some of the spots, checking other parts in the village, right? So whether it's a weekend or night, you guys are out there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. And like I said, sometimes we can clear them, and sometimes they're so charged you can't clear them because the system can't take any more water, and you just got to let time do its thing, and eventually it goes down.
Thank you to both Justin and Don and Pedro and Pepe. Thank you.
So
thank you.
You get notice. We have weather alerts. So perhaps it would be incumbent upon the village, the admin staff, to issue what we call a rave alert. So I would encourage everybody to sign up. It's like a reverse 911 system, and we can actually draw an area by map that you'll get an alert saying, hey, a storm is coming. Be sure to maintain your storm sewers or your drains. Just another way for us to remind you.
So that's something we haven't implemented yet, but we've talked about
doing. Well, the system has.
Yeah, the rave system working, but we haven't notified residents
Correct.
when a storm is coming to clean their vents. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, it sounded as though 90% of the flooding related to individuals, homeowners maintaining the system, the swale, or cleaning out the areas where the water flows, with the exception of adding that 1-inch collar around some of the flooding devices. That strikes me as being a little, we're not, if that's really it, individual maintenance, then the homeowners are responsible for that. But It just seems like we've had so much in flooding in 45 acres that that seems a little light on what the village can do to assist.
I don't think we've had flooding of
Can we
people's
add some of
houses.
the, some bigger mains and look to see where it is to make sure that it's flowing directly through to Flag Creek, or would you speak to some of those kinds of possibilities, please?
The answer is yes, you could, but it's going to require a considerable expense. As I said before, to add or upsize storm sewer requires you to not look at the property that's impacted, but to look at downstream. If we're going to move it from point A to point B, how is it going to impact point B? And it can be done. The model would need to be considerably expanded. Significantly more surveying would need to be done. All the way down to Flag Creek. To put in storm sewers to alleviate problems typically would require acquisition of easements, which some people may not be favorable to, especially to downstreamers that currently do not receive the drainage now that may potentially get it later. So it's something that can be done. It's an engineering study. It's an engineering, another engineering model. It's an engineering design. We'll be happy to talk further with village staff about it if that's something you're interested in. But the scope of it is magnified tremendously from what we did with the 45 acres.
Charlie, at Public Works, we also talked, I believe it's LaGrange that has bought a house and removed the house and put a detention area. So there are things that we can do, right? But that's pretty major, costly and all that. So I think that goes to Rob's study, and it's not, doubling the cost of this. It's substantially more.
Well, I don't live in 45 acres, so I don't experience the flooding, but I've certainly heard from a lot of the residents consistently that there is flooding in 45 acres. And it just seemed to me that there's a little more than personal maintenance on your own property that might be needed in order to alleviate the flooding. And that's just an impression.
Charlie, can I ask, when people have talked to you about flooding, can you define what they're meaning? Because in Public Works, we've talked about water that accumulates on property isn't flooding. That's the system doing what it's doing, but it might be unsightly for somebody. It might be worrisome for somebody. Flooding is actually coming into the residence. And based on the study and what Kevin and Rob have worked on, that it's working as designed, even though it's antiquated. It's 1974 standards. It's not current day standards. Bulletin 70 at 7.58 inches has now gone to 8.57. Things have changed. But flooding, if a ditch is higher, if the Pontiac bubbler occurs, if water is spilling over a roadway, that is the system doing its job. That's not flooding. So I think that's one thing that we need to clarify is people getting water in their house, or is it unsightly on their property? That's the difference.
My listening has been here and from residents that have spoken from time to time. And I don't think they've paraphrased the system as working as designed. They're getting a lot of water on.
Well, and I wouldn't expect them to, because they're not.
They're getting a lot of water on their yards, and the yards are flooding, and so that's the extent of my listening with this.
Which again, I think we need to convey to residents that is technically the system working as designed. Again, it might be unsightly. It might have some erosion.
I think it's more than unsightly. I mean, when your landscape's washing away,
I was just going to say that.
You spend a lot of money in your yard to make your yard look nice, and it's washed away, because I consider that flooding, and that's expensive to the homeowner. It's a damage to the homeowner.
Right. Well, but in that case, I would convey to a homeowner that maybe you shouldn't have landscaping where that water is going to accumulate and flow through. I mean, if that's, you can't change the water from where it's going to go. Water's going to go where it's going to go. If the systems decide to take water through a ditch and between homes, to have landscaping near that, so when that ditch does rise, to erode it away, it's still the system doing what it's designed to do.
If the system's adequate to take the water, and I think that's where we're at right now.
And the engineer is saying that it is.
If I can jump in, we do have on the website a place that people, residents, can tell us about the issues that they're having. And I believe Andy said tonight that that is changing on Monday, that we'll have a new site. Is it in the stormwater section, Andy, or it will be?
Yeah, it will be its own stormwater page, and we always urge anyone who's having any issues, whether it's flooding your house, especially if it's flooding your house, but if it's flooding your yard, let us know, and we will come out because we want to figure that out.
Many times.
Yes, I know. There's not always. So yes.
If we can please wait. If we can please wait, Debbie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a big. It's like Rob has explained, when you do one modification here, it can affect other areas. And so please do let us know. But that's really to Mayor Hinshaw's.
All right, so Debbie, please, we can't have shouting, okay? There are public comments again. We had them in the beginning, we have them at the end. And as Andy said before this started, anybody with questions or comments, please get them into the village through the website so that we can, okay, thank you. Okay, so,
Tom?
yep, Eileen.
So I think we took in a lot of information today. We've gotten this report. We've certainly heard over the many months from residents that live over there. We heard it firsthand from one of our trustees. I think what we need to do is to take this information, go back, and come up with a plan. And the plan, I don't think, should be, okay, everybody just clear off your storm sewers. I think we need to do something a little bit more in depth. I don't know if it's going to be just spending millions of dollars to put in a new storm system, but there's got to be some in between. And I think we need to do that. We owe it to the residents over there. I don't live there either, but the area I live in Ashbrook, and between our building and the building next door, there's what I now know is a swale. And it gets quite mushy there. I can't walk out there. I have to go through the house if I want to get in the front. To me, it's an inconvenience. It's not something that's disrupting my life. It's just an inconvenience. But if that was my lot, my backyard, I think it would bother me a lot. So I think we need to take a more deeper look at this.
So again, we are asking for people to let us know about your issues. In the big storms, I've been out a few times with Don and Justin. One house that was having water come close to the basement, their downspout was not connected. Or it was connected, but it was going right to the house instead of away the 5 or 7 feet. So when they did that, that took care of some of the waters. I know we have somebody here at the table that had issue in their backyard, and with working with Public Works, they were able to put in I think a French drain kind of thing and solve some issues. So we are here to help. We do want to know if people are having issues. But any other questions or comments from the board?
I would just ask that this report be amended so that people who have actually come forward and identified problems on their specific properties be interviewed as part of the study. And I know staff has supplied information, but staff aren't there when storms come through and know exactly what happens. So I would ask that that be done.
Well, again, I think when we get the comments, I think the plan is to, if they have questions, they would find out, right, Andy? And then we would create a FAQ from that. So good point, Rita. I do believe we are planning to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe during the interview process, if you're suggesting that the consultant meet with individual residents that have issues, if there are ways that it can be resolved right there, we would like for you to suggest that as well.
Eileen, I would suggest that first we use Public Works staff to go out rather than, not that we don't enjoy paying Thomas, but first pass to go through staff, and then they can put them together and go as needed, if that's all right. All right, other questions or comments?
Tom, if I could just take a moment, because I think you just invoked my situation. So just to let people know where I'm coming from, I live in 45 acres. I live on a decent-sized hill where I wouldn't think water would be an issue. 7 years I've been there, I've flooded 4 times. My basement is still torn up from the last time that it flooded last year. I had engineering come out, and after tens of thousands of dollars out of my own pocket, I moved water away from my house in between the residents next door to go down into the system that, again, I will say, based on numerous meetings I've been in, is working as designed. So if you're getting water into your house, definitely let us know. Public Works will come out. We'll look and see why it's happening. If it is an engineering issue from the village standpoint, we will look at it. But in a lot of cases, if it's coming into your house, it's not because of the storm system the way that it's designed right now. It's multiple issues. My particular issue was landscaping that neighbors behind me had done over the years that I was not about to go back and ask them to tear out and redo so I wouldn't get water anymore. So I'm very much in line with what's happening in that area, and just want to let people know that I personally have also suffered from it. So I'm not dismissing what he's saying, but after discussing this, I'm coming to the realization that our system, although antiquated, is working. Well, again, if water is accumulating on your property, that's not a flooding issue that is going to require maybe millions of dollars of piping to be put in. The landscaping, I understand, that is costly, but we need to work with what we have, and going in and trying to redo an entire system from 1974, I don't know that is going to be within our financial means. So,
all right, so this is not done after this report. As we've asked, we want to hear the comments. Andy is taking point to compile those, and we will come back. I don't know if it's next month or 2 months, but we will come back to this. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Charlie?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rob and Kevin. Okay, next item is the establishment of a landscaping and tree committee. I would like to nominate to the committee the following people. Sean Kennedy as the chairperson, trustee Brenda O'Loughlin, Bill King, Michael Popgron, Frank Sabalas, Rosemary Mazzola, and one name that came in after the packet was put together and distributed, Susan French. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to establish the committee as outlined.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Rita. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have.
Eileen?
Oh, sorry, Charlie.
I think you were first, Eileen.
Okay. I think the landscaping committee is a great idea. I think it's long overdue. I would like to know more about the people that have been nominated, because it's such an important committee. I'm wondering what their credentials are, if we vetted them in any way, if I could see their, resumes or a paragraph or something about them.
I did not mention, but as part of the committee, they're not residents, but we would have Don, our arborist. The Tollway has a representative that's an arborist that would be coming out. We have Thomas Brannon, who has been our intern, I think is the term, who has worked a lot on the tree project, so thank you for letting him do that. And Sean, I don't know if you want to address the folks
Well, poor Sean, he's on every committee we have up here now.
Not everyone.
Almost.
Julie would agree with you, though.
Yeah?
Yeah,
No,
so
really.
this started with the Public Works meeting a couple of months ago where Thomas came out and talked to us about the GIS and study that they've been earmarking all the trees in the village, and it started more conversations. And with what's going on currently with 294, with what is eventually going to happen with Wolf Road to whatever that looks like. We know that there's going to be substantial landscaping needing to be done there. We've, as the board knows and hopefully residents know, over a year ago we've started earmarking tens of thousands of dollars towards that eventual project. It's just started to be well, what about other things, parks that we have in the area? The Arrowhead Point, I believe it's referred to, at Wolf and Plainfield, was an area that used to have a old residence on it. It was a doctor's or dentist's office back in the day. It's since been taken down. I think there's 2 trees on that property now, but can something more? Heritage Center has always talked about developing the property just south of that. So a lot of things had come up, and that's when Tom decided, with Don's help and Mr. Brennan's help, that maybe we form a committee and actually start figuring out a plan for some of these issues.
What is the actual scope of this committee? What is it meant to address?
The first thing is, as I said in my report in the beginning, the Tollway has planned landscaping on their property in Indian Head Park, or adjacent to Indian Head Park, and I believe the plans are called 60%, so they're not done. That was sent out to the board in the packet, I believe, and they have asked for our input. You know, do we like the trees that they selected and locations? And so that's why the Tollway would be part of the committee to attend a meeting or two. They're not going to be on forever, and we need to get an answer back to them by the end of the year. So that's what we're starting with, and I think that's really it for now. I know Thomas, again, has done a lot of work. He's helped us with a grant, I think, from the Morton Arboretum. I believe that Thomas will be here next month to present a update on his work and his efforts. But Charlie, to answer your question, I believe the first order of business would be to review what the Tollway has sent us and then get them our feedback. And of course, this committee is open to the public, so anybody can come and attend.
Does this include areas of the Tollway which is east of Wolf Road and south of Joliet Road?
I believe there are some south of Joliet Road by Chestnut on the Green, I believe, but it was in the packet that we all got. The areas.
Is anybody on the committee from one of the 4 HOAs that are east of Wolf Road and south of Joliet Road?
Well, Bill is east of Wolf Road, but he's not south of Joliet Road. I know that Sean and I talked to people that live east of Wolf Road, but they did not say they wanted to participate. So we did not, at least I don't think Sean went by what area. Again, this is a tree and landscape committee to look at our right-of-way, to look at the tollway, so the locations in the village, you know, will change depending on what it is. Someday, if Wolf Road proceeds, it may be along Wolf Road, but that's at least several years out.
You mentioned Wolf Road. I'm thinking that the PIP, when it eventually gets formed, is going to have priority over those issues, including not only the issues in regards to the size of any modification to Wolf Road, but also the vegetation and the trees along it, because that was mentioned as well. So it seems to me that the scope, if you're mentioning Wolf Road, and it's been mentioned a couple of times, is contrary or conflicting with what the PIP is eventually going to do. So I'd like to see that specifically excluded from the scope.
Well, I believe you're talking about the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee.
That's the first step, and then the PIP, creation of the PIP after, right?
PIP first, and then the CAC.
Okay.
And the CAC hasn't been defined because the PIP hasn't been defined. There is some potential that the CAC could say, we want to have landscaping, another group brought in, but yes, that group would be looking at many items, and they won't be an expert in all. So that's, again, down the road. Don't know how that will happen.
Okay, well, just to be clear, I think that the Wolf Road, as it relates to vegetation and trees, should be excluded from the scope of this committee because it's going to be in conflict with the other committees that we've already committed to do, which includes the PIP and the CAC.
I hear what you're saying. Again, I think that's several years out for any landscaping along Wolf Road, so I hear what you're saying.
And is any of the vegetation along Flag Creek, is that going to also be part of the scope of the committee as well?
Along Flag Creek is the MWRD up to the top of the bank, I believe. So they have not talked about doing any landscaping work. So
I'm sorry, who?
MWRD.
The sanitary district.
Yeah.
So that is their area that they maintain. And so to my knowledge, that has not been brought up. So I think, Charlie, you're asking for specifics of the committee, and it was started with Thomas's work, Thomas Brannon, and his work in the village, and then the tollway came. So, you know, the board can do as they want, and if the board doesn't want the committee to meet or does not want, it wants a different committee, whatever, the board can do whatever they want, but mainly the first item is to get back to the tollway by the end of the year.
And of all the committee members that you mentioned, there's only one that's east of Wolf Road. Why don't we have more representatives?
Again, as I said, Charlie, I know two people specifically east of Wolf Road that were asked, and they said no. I believe at the last board meeting, I mentioned that this would be happening. I don't think it's my job or Sean's job to call everybody in the village to ask them. Some people came to Sean and said, I'm interested. I knew one person, I think we all know Heidi Lopez, does landscaping. I tried to get Heidi. She lives in Ashbrook. It was not a good time for her. Heidi is fantastic. But so I personally talked to Heidi. She does not want to do that, Charlie. So, you know, if you had names, and if you have names, I guess get them to me or Sean, and if you want to add somebody, we can talk about it. Again, the board decides what to do.
But we don't decide. I mean, this was already decided before we came here, and that was my point. If you're going to nominate people to be on the committee, I'd like to know more about them before that, instead of just saying, well, it's up to the board when the board doesn't have the information to make.
Sean, do you have any information on the people that were nominated?
I don't think anything in great detail that Charlie and Eileen are looking for, other than residents that are eager to help, to put some time in, are interested in this particular committee.
Are any of them arborists?
Or Mr. Gardeners?
There are two of them on the, what we're calling staff, which again, Don, our local, and the tollway. Thomas, I don't know what his specific...
He's not an arborist, but he certainly has a lot of interest, and he's done a lot of work.
Yeah, I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but very interested in the environment. I know Frank Sabalas personally. He is probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met when it comes to plants and animals. But as far as his credentials or anybody else, it's just people that are very interested in this particular committee that want to give back to the community and want to help, which I think are important.
I believe two of the residents back up to the tollway are close.
Yeah. So obviously Brenda and Susan, who just recently reached back out to me.
Three, and Rosemary.
Oh, Rosemary too, yes. So
if somebody else wants to join this committee, do they talk to one of you? Both of you? What happens?
I would say we get them to Sean, but then the board, I think, has to approve that. So again, anybody's welcome to come to the meeting. And the committee is advisory, so they're not going to decree anything that would come back to the board.
So a person could attend the meetings.
Anybody can attend.
And I assume they could, do you have a public comment section there?
Yes, of course.
If there's any vote, they probably couldn't vote within the committee, but they can certainly speak.
I would just ask that moving forward that if we're going to be forming committees or anything like that, that the board be informed ahead of time in terms of what's going on, and that the committees be informed and who's going to be on the committee, who suggested, so that we can make an educated vote on, for instance, the Economic Development Committee. We have a local broker, and we have a gentleman who's got extensive background in business development. So those are the kinds of expertise that I'm looking for individual committees. I'm a master gardener. I'm sure there are other master gardeners here, which I think would bring an awful lot to the committee.
I would suggest
I
that
can't
we-
serve on it because we can't have more than 2 trustees. That's what I'm told. So that's fine. I'll probably end up going to some of the meetings. But I think if we're going to form committees, we ought to have people on the committees that'll bring something to it.
I'd move that this issue be tabled until we get clarity on the scope, as well as some of the individuals. I need a second for that, though, right?
I'll second it.
Have we ever done that in the past? Is this outside of the norm of what we've done when we form committees? I mean, the last committee I chaired was the Shed and Fence, and I seemed like it was the same process. I'm pretty sure the Economic Development Committee was the same process.
I presented their credentials when I presented the names.
We're talking about landscaping in the village. It's okay.
All right, so Pat, help us out. We have a motion to delay this a month, I think was the motion.
Motion to table that was made and it was seconded, so it takes priority and it needs a roll call vote.
Do we have a idea why it's tabled or what we need to do in order to bring it back? Does that have to be outlined, or?
No.
So do we discuss that more? My point is, if I bring it back in another meeting, am I checking the boxes? What are they looking for?
Well, one thing I've heard, Sean, is a bio or something with people's credentials. I don't know what else other than involvement from the board, but
Just what their expertise might be, or what they can bring to the committee. And I'm not saying everybody on the committee, but we sure should have a few people on that committee.
but we will have 2 arborists as staff
They-
on
as
the committee.
staff,
Yeah.
right.
Right, that can answer
As
questions
the experts
about
that we would pose
tree-
questions to, right.
We would have one, and then the tollway. I don't want to say the tollway guy will be coming to every meeting.
Yeah, but they would not be voting members, right?
Correct. And again, it's,
We're looking at voting members of the committee on this list, is that correct?
yes.
That's why we're looking to defer this for a month to get clarification of scope and the individuals.
Okay, so that's a different motion. The motion to table is, it sounds to me like, after what you just said, you want to make a motion to continue until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
We can do that.
So would you like to amend your motion?
I'll amend the motion for that if the second will.
Second it.
So can you say that again, Pat, what the motion is, please?
Continue the matter until the next regular meeting.
And I would like to point out that the tollway has requested an answer by the end of the year. It takes time to schedule meetings. I don't know if this is one meeting or several meetings, but I just want to point that out. Any other questions or comments about
I'd
continuing?
recommend that we go ahead with this committee. Hopefully, we will have enough votes to get it going. And people who are interested can attend the meeting. They can certainly speak. They're not going to be silenced. So I think we've got enough to go ahead.
And my feeling is, it's hard enough to get people to volunteer at all for anything. And so I think we should be grateful that these people are all willing to give their time and come forward and help out as volunteers.
Any other comments? Okay, then, Pat, we're going to have a vote on to continue this until next month. Is that correct?
Correct. I recommend a roll call.
Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote on the motion to continue? And that was made by Charlie and seconded by Eileen.
Correct.
All right. Let's see. Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Dornersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
No.
Trustee Kennedy.
No.
And Trustee Metz.
No.
So the motion fails, so the main motion to concur with the recommendation and nomination is back on the floor.
All right, any other comments? Okay, don't hear any. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Clerk Alice, on the motion to approve my nominations to the Landscaping and Tree Committee?
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
No.
Trustee Dornersberger.
No.
Okay. That
All right, thank
passed.
you. So that has been approved. Next item, rejection of bids for the keyless entry to Village Hall. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to reject all bids for the village's keyless system project.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rita and Sean. John?
At last month's meeting, we opened bids for a keyless entry system for Village Hall and Public Works. The bids came in much higher than expected. Staff has enthusiasm for the process, but based on the feedback from the board at the meeting and the fact that we're embarking on a facility study, we would recommend rejection of the bids. With any luck, with the facility study, we'll be able to get a better clarity on the need for the keyless access system, and perhaps if we do any improvements at Village Hall, we can include that project in with that scope of work. So that is the reason for staff's recommendation for rejection of the bids.
Any questions or comments? I don't see or hear any. Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Farrell Mayer.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Eck.
Aye.
Trustee Donnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Thank you. That is passed.
Okay, the next item, holiday market.
Signs at Village Hall.
Oh, sorry. Signs at Village Hall and the general street signs. Who's up? Is this Justin? Justin and Andy?
Yep.
Think we're going to take a moment and move signs, or?
Oh, you want to pull them out?
Yeah, let's take a
Okay.
Let the record show Don was standing on his way over.
Oh,
yeah, that's what he meant.
Quality sign. We weren't supposed to touch that.
Yeah, the Admiral's hat.
The sharp metal objects.
John.
Yep.
Well, they're doing that. My point is, and it's nothing. Should I put on the record with this?
It's not, are you talking about tree and landscape?
Yeah.
I think we already.
No, I'm not. I'm just generally speaking about the formation of committees.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
I think this
there are-
isn't the time for this discussion right now.
So I just asked.
Yeah.
And I'm
And I
just, it's
said
not
that
a
it was
discussion, it's
about
something
tree
I
and
want
landscape.
to give you my,
We can talk about it after
Okay.
the meeting. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
So we'll start off talking about our street signs. We've talked about this before. Are we good? I'm sorry?
Yes, and the board has a document about Village Hall street signage 2022, I believe, that was before us, and it wasn't in the packet, or was it?
Was not in the package.
Okay.
Yep, I got it.
Hey, Justin and Don, can you turn that one so the audience can see part of it too?
Not that much.
There. Well, part of it, but we know what it looks like from this end.
No.
Just picture that little top part.
Yeah, glue it on.
All right, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, board. Thanks, Mayor. So again, we've talked about this before. The signs that we have in the town, the street name signs, are really cool looking. You know, the old wood ones that we have now. However, they're not technically compliant with today's standards, and that's the U.S. Department Transportation Federal Highway Commission Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Basically, what that means is the whole purpose of street signage is for identification for first responders, you know, premise ID on your house, like your house might be 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I'd like to see it if I'm going to come rescue you, and a street sign as well. So they've come up with these standards where the reflectivity and the sizing of letters is very important. For example, on major highways, you might see a speed limit sign that's huge because you're driving at such a high rate of speed. You want to be able to see it from a distance. So we've talked with the Public Works Committee, kind of spitballed some ideas, and this is kind of some of our findings, what we've come up with. This is something that we recommend that we need to do soon, and it's up to you guys, the board and the village, to kind of make these decisions. We're just presenting some of what we've come up with. I'll just kind of jump into it. Option 1 is what we recommend, which would be the Apache Arrowhead brown sign in the spirit and identity of what we currently have, right? You know, the brown sign, it's reflective and it has the Indian Head Park logo. So it's an identifier for the community, and hey, I know I'm in this town. And then that's for the top part. And then that's basically, this is a side street setup. The posts can be I know Chris Metz had mentioned that there's holes in it. Well, we can have posts that are solid, right? So on this, we've worked up some numbers, and I'll get into that in a minute. The other option that we've kind of tried to work a compromise with what's compliant and what we currently have, and that's the wood sign over here on my right, where we have the wooden post and then metal signs hanging from it, so you still have that feel. The problem with what we have now is they're wooden posts, they're costly to maintain, and they're not compliant. The letterings are, 3 inches, sometimes 4 inches, and they, major roads, they should be a lot bigger, like 6 inches for capital letters, 4.5 for medium. But we have to maintain them. Pedro has to, or Pepe will take a sign down and try to rehabilitate it, just hanging on by a thread, rotted posts. They'll literally, Pedro sits, paints it, and then sprinkles glass beads into the paint to get that reflectivity effect, which does work. It looks really bright, but for how long? And it's really not a legit standard. A lot of them they're leaning, falling over. So for compromise, we're just bringing up this idea that we can do this with the wooden. However, it'd have to be like a metal, because I don't know how to make wood reflective. I just haven't figured it out yet. So that's why we're suggesting the metal on that. And the other part of it is that this wooden hanging sign deal would be great for the neighborhoods, but not on the major roads. The major roads, there's like about 20 locations along Wolf Road and Joliet Road, because there's a high rate of speed, or it's over 25 miles an hour, they need to be bigger letters. So this is what we would suggest you have to do on, at 20 locations, Indianwood Drive and Wolf Road. And that would be the same kind of concept as this, the metal pole. On the 20 locations on the major roads, you wouldn't have the wooden poles. Installation, metal versus wood. Wood is way more costly, way more time consuming. You have to actually dig a hole, auger it down, place the wood. Actually, you have to build the whole wood. You got to paint it, blah, 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 put it together. It just doesn't make sense. Metal posts, basically you drill in the anchor, take the sign, put it in, put a couple bolts, and you're done. So really, you could be done on one of these in like 15 minutes for one. The other sign, it could be an hour or two. Cost difference, if you see it's kind of a breakdown. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. We can talk about it. But option one, this whole setup would be, I think, Andy, you had it on, didn't you write it on the thing? So it was like $300 for one sign. But if you add in like a contractor to install it, so you're looking at and this is just a ballpark and just a concept, about $450 a sign. Double the install for wooden signs. Both concepts are ballpark the same amount of money. The bigger size a little bit more, $310 or $300 versus $310. So there's a lot of variations or a couple of variations that can happen. We're suggesting that if you're interested in this, to go, option one, all-in cost, if you had the labor to install $15,000, it'd be $42,000 for the whole town. We have about 90 locations and 186 signs. So it's two signs per location. It's something that could be done over a course of a couple of years. If, for example, if we were to do 30 signs a year for 3 years, the cost would be $9,000. Just throwing out ballpark numbers, and it's something that we could do in-house very easily for that option. That option as well. So just presenting that to you again, just to see, get which direction you want to go.
Hey, Justin, I got a couple points of clarification to ask you. First, so the Public Works Committee kind of narrowed it down to these that are brown to kind of match what we have right now. There are other color options, though, should the board want to go that way, right? That's right.
Yeah, there is, when we have a sample here, there's a white background with white lettering.
Black, yeah.
White background, black lettering.
Yes, I'm sorry. There's, a blue background, green background, like you see in a lot of other towns. A lot of people see signs, they don't even really know, they don't pay attention, unless you are really have an emergency, you really need to see where you're going, or if they're so small you can't really see them, you're kind of turn off the side of the road. But those are the main colors.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, so we were talking about how the current signs are not compliant, and that's because the letters are not reflective, but isn't it also that the letters are not the right size and that the background is not reflective either? So correct. It's all three things, right?
And some of the letters are somewhat reflective, what we currently have, like you said, with the glass beads. Yeah. Sure. But for how long does that really last? I mean, glass beads and paint, these type of signs are going to last you, 20, 30 years.
How many signs a year do you typically rehabilitate?
These wooden ones? 5 to 10, possibly. It depends. Like a full rebuild, someone hits the post might be one a year, but a lot of times Pedro.
How often does Pedro have to come in and do the magic dust on the signs?
When he's bored, he'll go and do it. So
how often is he bored?
Well, he's not that bored.
Kidding.
So I think roughly 15 to 20 signs. So some of them are really faded, and they look crappy. And so we'll mention, hey, Pedro, this little area you get these, sometimes get complaints. Hey, this looks really bad. It's really wearing off. We'll take it down, repaint
How long is it out of commission?
It could be 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, can you just have other wooden, what do you call it, the wooden things that they're hanging on?
Uh-huh.
Is that what you're talking about, rebuilding, or the sign? Is that? Oh, so you.
The
could
actual
maybe-
sign, correct.
Okay.
Sometime, that's a majority of it, but he'll also still paint the rest of it. What we have, our current inventory is really a lot of rot. A lot. I mean, these are, you're talking maybe 30 plus years, and they've seen their extent of their life.
Can just, I don't know if everybody heard Don say that, so when we redo one of those signs, it's about $500? Just the sign, not the post, not the bracket, the sign. And we're doing roughly 10 to 20 of those a year.
That's, well, that,
Not the sign, I mean, if it gets hit, then we have to order one, but Pedro rehabilitates these, about maybe 20 or so.
Pedro will rehabilitate by painting. If we were to purchase one, Signs by Slack, I'd like a new sign. Okay.
That's $500.
Give me $500. Okay. Now we need 2 of them. Okay, now give me $1,000. Plus it's about $200 in parts and material for a signpost, and that doesn't include install.
But we haven't done many signs from Signs by Slack. Pedro's rehabilitated them. He's taken his time, but we haven't purchased new replacements very frequently. I don't see many.
No, in the 4 years I've been here, we've probably made 4 or 5 purchases of new signs, and that's because they've been totally snapped.
And that's not
so he's really hanging to these guys on a they're on their last legs. repaint over rot. Kind of like segue into Village Hall, the front sign that was painted for so long and it was rotted. It was held on by paint. It was held together. It was
These signs that you're proposing with the metal, those would last for years, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
They would not have any real maintenance at all.
This has no maintenance besides someone running it over, whatever, and it's designed to break away. The wooden signs is about every 3 years you need to paint it. So you have an ongoing cost of painting maintenance or rotted maintenance, whatnot.
So can you, I like the look of this, obviously. I mean, it's got character to it, but I understand what you're saying. So with the metal signs, can you more closely mimic what this looks like? I mean, right now it's just so I know this is just a demonstration, but
Sure.
the metal on it, like under Arrowhead Court, it's metal. It's not, it stands out. You know what I mean?
Oh, and that's just because this was kind of a last minute.
Okay.
We were changing stuff around so that the silver metal you see and the brown you see, it could be powder coated, and we just spray painted this stuff. Okay. So it would be powder coated to match, either brown, black. It wouldn't look that industrial. If you were to answer, you wanted a sign like that, but made out of metal where it's hanging like that, to do just for the material alone, for a 4-inch square post and anchors, it's ballpark at least $123,000 just for the material.
Good Lord.
And that's not to install, put it together, versus something like this where actually, if you take off the install cost, 42 minus 15, I don't know, was... Okay, there you go.
Hey, Justin, that bottom bracket is that brown? Was that painted on that sign?
It's black, I think.
It's black?
Yeah, it's black.
Okay. So it could be brown or whatever
that's what
color.
he's saying.
Right.
to match
So
the sign.
like the village of Palos Park, they have brown, this same setup, brown signs, and they have a black post. Burr Ridge has, shoot, I can't remember their color. They have a black post. It's a solid post. So there's some issues with that if it's solid or holes in it. Solid posts are way more expensive, hard to get. Standard stuff with the holes is kind of routine.
Justin, did you have a chance, I know when Chris brought it up at the meeting, being in opposition of the holes, if I remember correctly, you were going to look for like a sheath or cover to go over? Did you have to
I
find
did not.
Okay, that's
No,
fine. And I know it was very short.
But I thought they had the posts that you could punch out the hole. Was that, or am I imagining that?
Yes, you're correct, and we had it in here. I don't know where it went.
Yeah, it was another section. So there's posts that don't have as, you don't see the holes as much, but they're there, and you could literally punch them out. So if you needed to add, say we had a post and we need to add some emergency signage throughout the town so everyone kind of see like, hey, something's going on. It's easy to mount something where you bang out the little hole or the hole's already made, mount the sign, and where a solid post, you have to take a lot more time to initially install it because now you've got to drill a hole. They don't come pre-drilled. Well, we could order that, but that's another cost to send out 100 signs just to be drilled when they come already pre-made.
So are we being?
The signs in Ashbrook are hanging from the street lights?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you look at those? I mean, can we do, is that wood, those over there, the wood post, is that wood also, the sign itself is wood?
No. No, the sign is metal, reflective
metal.
metal.
That's
Okay.
metal, right. So that makes us compliant, right? The reflective back, the reflective lettering. Ashbrook, there would be some kind of tweaking where it would either be another signpost in the ground, but most likely there's other brackets that could be mounted to the existing where they are now, where they wouldn't hang. So it'd be like that. If they do that,
Have we talked to the associations in terms of what they have and what they may want to have in their areas? Yeah.
we have not.
Okay. The population in Indian Head Park is 1,300 people or 1,300 residences or more in associations and roughly 400 or so single family with that. So I'm going to suggest that we put a presentation together that addresses and goes to the association presidents as well, because they may have some recommendations in regards to what they would like to see in their
Charlie, that's what this meeting is.
Yeah,
Anybody can come to the meeting. So we don't take a road show to talk about signs or other issues to all the associations. So please get the word out to the associations. We're not voting tonight. I think we're looking for direction so that we can continue this process. So please get the word out to
That direction
associations.
I will.
About any issue, please.
Personally, I like the sign that we have. I like the update with the metal instead of the glass beads. The glass beads, when they're new, are much more reflective than these are, as we proved in a committee meeting. All right. So, anyway, I like that kind of a sign. If you can do something to have a post that is not going to rot as quickly or ever, that would be a benefit. So
I'll just add my 2 cents.
The quaint. Let me finish just a second.
Sure.
The quaintness of these is fairly unique to Indian Head Park. Everybody else has these other signs. I like these a lot.
These signs are easy to see from every direction, if you notice. Those signs are very difficult. When I came here and started working, to the average person that is driving and is looking for a street, it's very dangerous, because if you stand on one side, you can see one street name, but you can't see the other street name. They're very dangerous. And here along Cascade, when you're making those curves and all these signs are posted the way these signs are, they're very difficult to see and know what street that you're approaching or you're looking for. These from every angle you could see.
You may not be able to answer this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you think that those are still not compliant then? If we, I mean, I know the letter size and the reflection, and we've done that, but to your point, if you can't see it other than straight on, it might not be compliant, and then we go through $60,000 of
It's
spending.
possible. I don't know for a fact it's possible, but I will say there's a safety issue with those signs. The way, if there was a way to stagger the signs like those are, it would work. But the way they are right now, it's not safe. It's
Well,
not
whatever we do, we're going to make sure it's compliant before we do it. We're not going to spend all that money. I have a question, though, which you may not be able to answer either. As I was driving down 55th the other day, really far west of here, I don't even know where I was, maybe Lyle or someplace like that, there were no signs on 55th Street. No street signs. There were signs for the side streets going in, but they're absolutely, if I didn't know, I had to look at my GPS to make sure I was still on 55th.
For the main streets, basically. For the main streets.
Yeah.
The side streets are posted, but not the
Right.
main streets.
Right.
I'm not sure why that is.
But that's not our plan here in the village.
It's not Indian Head Park.
All right, other questions, comments for Justin?
Yeah, Justin, if I agree with Chris, and that's why we mocked this one up, because I thought it would be most liked by the residents, because it's close as we can come to what we have right now.
Sure.
Just looking at the bottom line cost roughly right now, $16,000 more. Can you put time and numbers per year maintenance-wise on it roughly if we were to go to this setup as we see it right now?
When you say that setup, you mean that one?
Well, yeah,
that one,
because
or that
it's a
one?
wood post that is going to rot, that has to be painted, that has a maintenance issue to, I believe Rita brought it up. This is you stick it in the ground in 40 years, we don't worry about it unless somebody hits it. So if these guys are going to go, if we're going to go through a cost of roughly $16,000 more, and it's another $5,000 a year in maintenance and paint and 100 hours of Pepe's time, I'd like to try to add that to the bottom line too, if possible.
If we could have something wood-like in appearance with the 4x4s, is that something we should pursue?
Well, I think Justin covered that, right? That the cost was
outrageous.
There's right the cost of it, like the metal post. There's other material like composite.
Correct.
There's most of the time they're just homeowners associations where they're small, they're really not regulated recreational areas where they're wooden or composite plastic. Where you don't need this kind of reflectivity kind of thing.
No, I'm not talking about the signs. I'm talking about the posts themselves.
Oh.
Is it possible to have something wood-like in appearance? Because from what I gather from the board, you like the structure of the wood post.
Yes, so it is possible. Anything's possible, but it's a cost. What do you want to pay now, and then what are you gonna pass on to the future? Oh, great, thanks, guys. 10 years ago, you decided to make all these composite things. Now they don't make that. That's when it gets into the decorative stuff. There's some towns we've talked to, and they're like, do not ever do decorative stuff because it's cool for a couple years. Then you're not able to find it.
Will it fade?
Right. So it fades. So with the hanging signs, there's a lot more moving parts. So yeah, they do swing. They can hit on each other. They wear off. Metal, composite, whatever. They can still pull out the hanging thing. And not to say that these ones won't do that either. It's anything's possible, but there's just a lot more issues with those ones that we wanted to present it, but we just don't recommend. And then I want to thank Steve for standing up. We did not make note, please. We did not ask him to say what he said. He did that on his own. And coming from a first responder, police, fire, whoever, they're really the ones that are really looking, oh, where's this Apache? And you can't always rely on GPS.
Justin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, what are we looking for tonight from the board?
I'd like consensus on the metal signs, the metal street name signs, is the Arrowhead Court with the Indian Head Park logo, is that acceptable? And then I think we've gotten some good feedback on the structure of the post itself, that we can come back and give you some more defined options. But I'd kind of like feedback on the metal sign, us going to metal signs versus our wooden street name signs, and then we'll mock up how it's going to be mounted at a future meeting. And the color. The color is very traditional with what we have now. That's why staff is presenting that. We could go green, we could go blue, black and white, but the gist from what I hear is the board's comfortable with staying with the brown, white and brown.
So is the board consensus, the metal sign like that and that on the big road, main roads?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I can't see, Justin, those have the logos on it too?
Obviously, I'm not.
Nope. You have to imagine.
I agree with Chris.
Will they have them?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the lettering.
No.
Didn't pay
The
attention.
logo.
The logo, yes. Yeah, you can have it with logo, without logo. Those ones we just chose not to.
So I think I heard Chris say no. Eileen, did you?
Yeah, I go with the wooden ones. Let me ask you one more question. You say you have to take these apart to, if they're rotting or something and the street sign's out of commission for a while. Can't we have extra wood so that if some part of that is rotten, then we can just put it in and take the bad piece and work on that for the next one? Sort of a rotating.
The issue is like Stonehurst Lane, if that got damaged, you have to take that out. We don't have another Stonehurst Lane.
No, not the sign with the street name on it, but the wooden part of it.
The post?
The post.
Yeah, post, I don't think post is an issue. It's the maintenance.
Maintenance. Right.
I think Don said like maybe one a year gets hit, or Justin said that, and they have to put a new post in. But the maintenance that Pedro or Pedro has to paint is the Stonehurst Lane, the actual sign itself. Is that correct?
Isn't that still the same as?
But he does, still paints the post. Usually he just does the whole thing. So I think what you're asking is, if we got to take a sign down, there's a piece of rot, whatever, do we have something readily available? It doesn't make sense to us just to pull out a whole wood post, put a whole new one in every time that, there's some, because they've, well, the way that we have been doing it is, if it's really bad, then we'll pull it out. But we're suggesting if we were to do a whole new one, we wouldn't have this rot for, treated wood for 20, 30 years.
But still painting them every 3 years, you said?
Right.
Yeah.
Still painting it and possibly having to fix the holes where screws come out and from wind.
All right, going back to what John said, looking for some direction from the board, I believe I heard Rita and Sean say they like the metal signs. I think Eileen and Chris said they like the wood signs.
Well, this sign doesn't have wooden. The wooden post, yes, or a wood look post, yes. But this style is what I like.
Okay, and Charlie?
I'm with Chris. I like the style, and Eileen. However, as it relates to Ashbrook, the mounting wouldn't be on wood. It would be on the lights that are already there that hang up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, but where that doesn't exist, then I like the wooden ones. Is that Chris? Is that what's more in? 45 acres then?
Yeah, as it is in the rest of the village.
Yeah.
All right, John, did you
for
get
Ashbrook,
feedback that you were looking for?
For wooden posts, but the metal signs with the logo.
Yes.
Or am I missing?
I think I heard, or wood-like post.
Wood, yes, I'm not even, wood-like post, yes.
4x4 post
Got
or something.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Right.
Oh, I thought you said expensive.
Yes, it sounded, that's why I clarified. So, all right, just to make sure that so you're going to look at that setup, which you're calling option 2.
Right.
With a composite post structure.
Or wood, depending on which
Wood,
is
okay, that's why I'm
maintenance and all
asking.
that.
So if it is wood, can you also come up with a annual maintenance schedule cost for that?
Yes, the annual maintenance. So we can, annual cost. This option 2 was including a whole new wood post install.
That's, okay, so as we see it right there, new wood posts for every single one of the 190 locations.
90 locations.
90. You got 69, 21, and 100.
69, okay. There's 69 locations for the smaller letterings, 21 locations for the Main Street signs. And that labor to install, that's an estimate, $150 at 100 locations. That was just from a contractor giving a price.
All right, so we will,
Okay.
we'll come back at a future meeting if that's okay.
Okay.
Is that all right with the board?
Please, yes.
Okay, next item, the Village Hall sign.
So I mentioned earlier we had, because of the Acacia project, we had taken out the bushes and the sign that was being held together by paint, literally. And we're bringing it to you to see what the direction is, what kind of Village Hall sign you would like out there. Uniformity throughout the village is very important. I feel for a community, you kind of know where you are, just like the street signs. So what we currently have is, I think maybe the next one, here it is, Plainfield and Wolf. This was installed by the village, approved by the board a couple years ago. This cost was about $10,000, a little bit more for some landscaping. So this is an option. We already have this in town.
We have one of those out of the 6, right?
Right, and right now we're not suggesting that the village board and community change all the signs in the village entrance areas, but just in front of Village Hall where you're missing something. So you spent all this money and time at beautiful Acacia Drive, and now it's kind of plain out there. If you've seen it, it does look nice with nice grass, but. We're bringing up if you like that. So there's a couple options. Like I said, this is something that you already have. It's kind of the cobblestone Indian Head Park and some landscaping. Basically getting concepts and seeing what direction the village should go.
What material is this made out of?
Wolf and Plainfield is like a faux material, or faux. It's like basically like foam, fake. It's fake rocks. It's fake wood. No, it doesn't. No, you want to. So same thing at Blackhawk Park. It's the same thing. It looks like wood, but it's foam on the inside, except the wood post.
You're going to talk about the other?
So this is another concept that from another vendor that just kind of came out and said, hey, this is kind of what looks like that. It kind of matches your Village Hall. This is what we suggest you do. Or not they suggest, but just we ask them to kind of come up with something. A lot of other towns kind of have this idea. You have the logo, where it's just like Orland Park or Willowbrook. It's just a logo on some areas. Homer Glen. I'm throwing out these costs. I don't know how much, but just ballparking at $50,000 for something like that. The other one that was I was just speaking on was probably about $20,000 to add some landscaping and stuff around it.
You go back to that one. I think that one you're talking is
right. So what that concept is, it's flagstone faux finish with the planter on the side, the big sign. I think it measures what's that, 10 foot, so you can kind of see it. And again, this is like the foam board kind of faux stuff. It can be changed, worked around, could be cost more, cost less. It's all about what the village board really wants to spend. you know, do you want to go all out and have a $100,000 sign, or do you want a $100 sign, you know, just like a poster board or something?
Or that one over there is the 100.
Or that, no, that's 50. Cut you a deal. $50.
The wood one on the side.
50 cents. 50 cents.
So, Justin, the one that we're looking at right now, we could change that font to match the one that you were looking at on Wolf and Plainfield.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which would
change
then
font,
start to tie
color.
in.
Yeah, this is just an idea. But what does the village board want to do? Do you want a wooden sign? Do you want real rocks? Do you want
Can you
fake
go
rocks?
back and cover the other one so we can see the other, the one with the temperature? I don't think you talked about that one.
So that's another one. That's Palos Heights, and throwing it out, 65,000. The illuminated stuff is very costly. I used to drive by it like every night. It was very bright. You could really see it. It's like almost. I don't care for the LED. I don't know what kind of material it is. These are just stuff I grabbed online just to, you know, throw out some ideas. What other areas do?
I think he had one more that this one, no.
The special one. No, that's not special. That's not. You don't have it?
Uh-oh.
That was the best one. Oh, man. It's one that I copy and pasted, literally. It's right here. There's the paste.
Oh.
So, I'll make this quick. These old signs that are you see over here, we found like 5 or 6 in the rafters at Public Works. They're probably from the 80s, if anyone remembers. It was maybe 70s. We really can't narrow it down. I just had this idea, this concept personally, that what if we use this and incorporated like the cobblestone feature that we have at Arrowhead Point, Wolf and Plainfield, where it would be like a cobblestone big planter on the bottom, and then these signs.
You want to pass it around?
Yeah, I want to pass around my. Are they reflected?
Oh.
And when you're done, and John said he'll put it on the refrigerator because it's so good. So the idea was this sign on one side, and then kind of like the reverse effect on the other side that says Village Hall Police Department, mounted on top of like a planter box with the cobblestones, maybe like an arrowhead in the middle or something like that. And that could be done for a lot cheaper, and probably half of it done in-house if you want to retain some. But I thought it was better at copy and paste on the computer, but I had to go back to old school, so don't rip off my tape, please.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, cheaper sounds better.
Cheaper sounds better, thanks.
Oh, my God.
Any other comments?
That's all.
So are we giving direction on which one we want to get more
comments for what you like, what you don't
Comments,
like.
input. Yeah, the one mock-up that you had with the script writing, to me, Justin, I think the only change, that one, the only change I might recommend is do we go to the same font that we have already to keep continuity. But I like that, the way it looks with the planner, with the Indian head logo. The one thing that I will mention, if you said it, I apologize, I didn't hear you, but the sign people that we met with recommended that we turn it 90 degrees from the way it was.
Yes.
So this will be going perpendicular to the way it was, because the way it was, he said his point was you couldn't see the sign until you were on top of it. With the curved road, when people are coming down, it being turned 90 degrees would be much more visible. So,
Right.
And we would have it illuminated too, because there is electric out
And
there.
they got the lights out.
That would be my vote.
I agree with that one. I like that one as well, with the other font.
Wow, we got 2. Anybody?
Yeah, I like that one as well.
I like the one at Plainfield and Wolf.
Well, yeah, it'd be similar with the same font.
And this one, you could change it from the flagstone to a different type of stone so it would match. I guess if
Chris, did you have, I know you said cheaper, do you have a preference?
Not a real strong preference, to be honest. This one that's up there is nice. I'd prefer to see it be real stone, which isn't going to be cheaper.
But did you know the one up in the corner was not real stone?
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
you were
I
here
did.
when
Yes.
they bought it.
Yeah.
They're all,
Yeah. But to me,
almost all of them are manufactured this way now. There's
Yeah,
very few that
pretty
are
standard.
actual wood and stone, and because they last longer, they're less expensive, easier maintenance. I mean, that was the presentation he gave us anyway.
All right, so tonight, I think I heard 4 like that sign and 1 liked what's existing on Arrowhead Point. Thank you, David. We're not deciding tonight, but can help us define, get better prices, change the font, maybe change the rock to look like Arrowhead Point on that one. Does that sound good, John?
I'd like to ask a question.
Can you turn on your microphone, please, or talking?
So if it's going to be 90 degrees difference, is it going to be double-sided then? So you'll be able to see it from both sides, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I would also recommend that you do not use cursive because now the children are not learning cursive in school.
Yeah.
Go back to the Arrowhead Point.
I'll comment to you.
Yeah,
after
block
the meeting.
letter, that font. All right, John, Justin, good for now? Yes. We'll come back next month, hopefully?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, next item, I think, is holiday market funding.
Well, thank you. I think that's me. The Economic Development Committee is trying to put together.
Excuse me, do we need a motion, Tom?
No, this is just informational, I think.
Well, it says a motion, if needed, it will be provided, so I don't think we have a
Okay.
motion.
Just want to make sure.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Anyway, we've begun to look at hosting a Christmas market, hopefully one of the first weekends in December. Right now, we're still in the process of planning it, but if we're able to pull it off, we expect it to be exciting with between 15, probably around 15 vendors, Christmas tree decorating and lighting for the village, carolers, and decorations, and a lot more. So we've already begun to get estimates, but this was something came up pretty quickly, so we don't have the full budget yet. So I'd like the board to consider allowing us to go up to $12,000 to fund the event.
I'll second that.
And I think you
Well, it's
would
not-
be
it's
getting
motion.
consensus, because we would
Right.
come back at the next
Yeah.
month meeting, right, to
Right,
approve.
and there are dollars in the budget to do that.
Does the board need to approve that, or can John approve it?
It's
It's board approval.
just beyond my scope of
Yeah.
what I can approve.
If we can keep it under the 10,000, then he
Then,
can approve
yeah.
it, but I wanted to alert the board that we may be going over.
Oh, did you say, I thought you said 1,000. You said
No, no.
10?
12,000.
Oh, 10, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it properly.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, why are we talking about $1,000?
Oh, darn
We
it.
do have the
Sorry,
listening
you heard.
devices, Chris, if needed. All right, so Eileen, if I got it right, you're looking for consensus, whether this is an idea to proceed with, that you're estimating
We're gonna-
$12,000, maybe
Right.
10,000, but you don't know, but not $1,000, it sounds like. Thumb up or thumb down?
I'm for it.
2 thumbs up?
Chris,
I want to know more about what we'd be spending that money on, so.
Okay, that would be next.
I'll have to.
Well, that's my understanding, is we'll get that
Yeah,
later. But
sure.
in general, I'm in favor.
So I think enough, a majority says to continue, and hopefully we'll have update next month, right?
Which logistically, next month, that gives us what, 3 weeks tops to have it planned? Is that?
No, we're going to have a plan. We're meeting again next week. We've accelerated our meeting schedule, so we'll have a plan pretty quickly. But you bring up a good point. I'll probably have the budget after the event. So somehow I need to figure out the budget quickly and get board approval before the next meeting. I don't know if they can, how that would work.
Keep it under 10,000, and maybe John could approve it. Right.
suggest, I would suggest board consensus, give me up to $15,000 to assist
Okay.
with the planning of this, knowing that I'll be going over my spending limit, but it'll be approved ultimately by the village board anyway. So just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all right, Pat?
That's all right, as long as the board is okay with the event itself. There was no motion, this was a discussion and informational, and now it's morphed into spending authority into an event. So if we're going to formalize it, I think we should have a motion so that everybody's on the same page with what we're approving.
All right, so.
Thank you.
I make a motion that the village sponsor and run a Christmas market the first part of December with the budget of $15,000. Thank you.
I'll second that.
No, okay.
You second? Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Although we were calling it a holiday market, right?
Holiday market, correct.
Eileen and Charlie, thank you. Can I ask, is this one day or is this a week or how long? 1 day.
Possibly 2 days, but right now it's 1 day.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, it's just so vague. I'm not sure what we'd be spending money on, so I have a hard time approving anything.
Eileen, I know there were rough plans, but we're talking about, I think, renting tents?
The big expense is the tent rental. Trying to think, was there anything else?
Heating, electricity.
Generators.
And that would be included with the
In the
rental of
tent
the
rental.
tents, yeah. So lighting, heating,
And the vendors, are they food? Are they Santa Clauses or ornaments?
well, we
or-
hope to have a Santa Claus there. I'm going to talk to Brenda about that. And the vendors will be, like, for instance, Christmas decorations, crafts, perhaps a couple of ethnic tents that would sell, for instance, I'm Irish sweatshirts or something, or sweaters. We have a list of vendors that have been at other holiday bazaars, so we're working on that. So if we can get the vendors this quickly, by next Wednesday, then we feel confident we can move forward with it. So that's what everything is hinging on right now.
And this is in the Triangle?
Yes,
And is it a weekend, Saturday, Sunday?
yes.
That brings up a question that I forgot to ask yesterday. Yes, in the Triangle on what we refer to as the old Dome property, do we need to reach out to them to make sure that
Yeah,
that's...
we talked about that.
Okay.
So December 3rd or 4th, 10th or 11th, or?
Probably the 3rd or 4th.
1 day?
1 or 2 days, I think I heard. And so there would be things to buy, things to
Yeah, that's
buy
what,
to eat?
it's like a Christmas market. There's a Christmas market in downtown Chicago. Or, Germany's noted for their Christmas market. So it would be something like that, and there would be food, and probably a little spiced wine, hot chocolate for the kids.
So we might have an alcohol ordinance for that event?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? Could we get a roll call vote, please, Clerk Allison?
Yes. Trustee Donnersberger?
Aye.
Trustee Eck?
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayer?
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy?
Aye.
Trustee Metz?
No.
Okay.
All right, that has been approved. The next item is a motion to unencumber tollway funds. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Charlie will make the motion to make the tollway funds previously received as part of the
You are
general
right.
fund unencumbered, is that right? And that was Charlie and Rita.
Correct.
John?
Yes, sir. So a number of years ago, we started talking about this in November of 2019 when the concept was introduced to the village board, and we consummated the sale of the property that I'll talk about in a minute in February of 2020. What happened was when the tollway was doing their plans and they were having the community meetings, the tollway was going to take what we call the Mazer property. It's a property that's west of Vine Street, south of Joliet Road. It's about 15% of our total commercial corridor available land in the village. And I was concerned because we were always hoping to use that for commercial development. It's part of the planned unit development. And so we are looking at other options not to lose a valuable piece of real estate in the village for commercial purposes. The village had unusable, property that you could not get to west of Flag Creek but east of the tollway. It's a very odd parcel, heavily sloped, and we were able to swap this out with the tollway authority, and they're using this parcel for compensatory storage for flooding. So it's actually going to help the stormwater management. It will be increased further upstream than downstream. At the same time, we were also looking at how to help develop the triangle further, and the concept was to have a connecting road. The village would build a connecting road between Wolf Road and Vine Street running along the northern end of the tollway, just the very southern end of the property where, if you've been around the village for a long time, the 3 houses used to be that we had torn down. So we were just going to make a loop, so to speak, for easier access to the triangle. The tollway is realigning the entrance ramp, which should be finished by the end of this calendar year, right exactly where we wanted to have the road cut for Vine Street extended. We can't do that because of tollway regulations with cross streets connecting at a 90-degree angle immediately to a toll ramp. So the only place we could move the road would be 350 feet further north, which would take property away from the coolants at the Salon Suites or the doctor's property further north. And we would have to acquire at least 60 feet of road for a right-of-way. So we would be further taking away land that we would have to acquire because it's private property and go through that expense.
John, the 350 feet that you mentioned, that is a requirement of the highways that you can't have a cross street within that many feet of a ramp.
Toll ramp, yes. So basically our idea of building a road is impossible. We have always had the thought that the board had when we got the $510,000 would be to use this for a road. So we've kind of squirreled it away in the budget for this purpose. We can't do this purpose anymore. So I would just like the board to say, we're no longer going to encumber this money, restrict it for road use for the triangle, and transfer it to the general fund to be used for any legal purpose. And I love that phrase. It's not going to be transferred to the motor fuel tax fund or the water fund. It's going to the general fund, which has everything else that the village does under its umbrella. So the police department, the building department, admin, public works, we're all under the general fund. So that money becomes available for that purpose.
John,
Yes.
on that case, we're talking about $500,000 here, and then the next item, we're talking about $506,000, of which we've already received the $506
Yes.
in 2 installments. So we've got roughly $1 million that we haven't yet allocated. So if we wanted to do something and allocate some of that to, say, 45 acres, and their flood problem, if we wanted to do something in regards to flooding on Flag Creek around the condo associations that are east of Wolf Road, those are projects that, after thorough board discussion, would be something that these funds could be used for?
Absolutely.
All of it?
You can use the money as the board sees fit. Now, staff will be giving you their suggestions for how to spend some of this money, and I'm sure that the committees will come up with how to spend the money. And as we did with the goal-setting session, I envision a lot of discussion, both from the board and the public, about how to spend this money. The money's been budgeted this year in a couple line items. So we have a revenue source and an expense source. So in theory, we could spend it this fiscal year. However, I think being fiscally prudent, we want to have a plan for it. So now let's start talking about the plan.
Well, the first step is, as you suggested, is let's get the money into the general fund.
Correct.
And that's the motion and
Right.
the second.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I do have one thing I would like to address. The board, very often, when villages or cities are acquiring or selling property, we get to do this in closed session because we worry about price gouging, the concept that we have deep pockets and we can pay a lot for things or we can sell things for cheap. We did not do that in this case. Every conversation we had on this subject was done in open session. And I just want to comment that that is unusual, but great that none of this was done in closed session. It was all done in the open at board and committee meetings. So,
Well, John, I agree. It was done in the open. One thing we heard, though, is communication could have been better, and I will take the blame for that in that because we were selling the land behind some houses, even though it was across the creek, we could have communicated to them more about what we're doing. But yes, everything we did out in the open.
I agree.
Okay, any other questions or comments on unencumbering the tollway funds? I don't hear any or see any. Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Eck.
Yes.
Trustee Farrell-Mayer.
Yes.
Trustee Darnersberger.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Metz.
Aye.
Thank you, that's passed.
All right, that's been approved. Okay, last item, I believe the discussion use of the ARPA funds. I think it's a very similar conversation. John, anything to add?
We received the second tranche earlier in September. So we have $506,000 and change. Because we received less than $10 million, the village has much greater flexibility in how we spend the money. We have to spend it appropriately, but we have more flexibility. In general, we can't make deposits in the pension funds, which we don't have to worry about because our pension fund is funded and it's budgeted. We can't use it to pay for debt service. We can't use it for a rainy day fund. And we can't use it to settle any lawsuits. And finally, we can't spend it to undermine the efforts to stop COVID-19. Basically, the purpose is to get this money into the economy to help stimulate the economy. So we have to spend it. We have to have a plan in place by December 31st of 2024, and we have to spend it by December 31st of 2026.
Mainly for economic development, is that what you're saying?
You can spend it for economic development or any legal purpose that the board decides. Again, I love using that phrase. So, yeah, I know our attorney does.
And John, that $10 million was added recently,
Correct.
right?
Last several months. It just is with every community receiving millions of dollars, or in our case, 500,000. I think the federal government figured out that there was going to be a huge backlog for checking things. We have to spend it. We'll have to file increased reporting under the Government Accounting and Transparency Act. We have to file paperwork for this, but the discretion we have is much greater and the scrutiny from the feds will be much less as long as we spend it appropriately, and we have auditors to watch us on that.
So more to come on that.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're at the report section. Trustees, I will start with Charlie as we go around the dais.
I'm good, thank you.
Rita?
Yeah, we're having a meeting of the Communications Committee on Tuesday, the 18th at 5 p.m.
And we have a new committee member, so we will report back. I'll report back on what we do.
And we have one survey that is out right now, is that right? The street lights, or is that done? Still out? We accept website comments and others. Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
Chris? Trustee Metz?
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Sean?
A couple of things on roads. So Acacia Drive, as we know, according to Tom, we're 99% there. Looks like we have just some landscaping and minor details to finish out. Acacia Circle is going to be starting soon. That is the road that goes around the 5 Wilshire building complexes. Special note, the board will remember a month or two ago we approved an agreement between Wilshire and ourselves that they were going to pay for the parking end of it, that we would take care of the road. So stay tuned for that to come. And also shortly, and I was hoping Thomas would still be in the room if there was any questions, but off of Big Bear Drive.
Oh, Thomas, the other
No,
Thomas.
Thomas Engineering, sorry.
There is a Thomas.
Thought you meant- Unless you changed your last name that I didn't know. Did he? No? Acacia Drive Apache Drive is going to be starting soon, and that's going to include Chris's cul-de-sac, which is Arrowhead Court, is that it? And also Frank's, what is the other, Indian Head Trail? Indian Head Court, the other cul-de-sac?
Court.
Yeah. So anybody that lives over in that area, we're going to be...
And Big Bear, too. Yeah.
And all the way down? Big Bear all the way down?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Big Bear all the way down.
And planned to be done by
I don't know if I got that.
November 1st.
November 1st?
That's what they said. Yeah, of course, weather permitting.
Weather permitting, correct.
The other half of 45 acres?
It's part of the road program. I don't know off the top of my head. So what Thomas Engineering has done is surveyed all of our roads, and they come back to us with which ones are in the worst shape. And then every year we meet Public Works and work on a budget and decide what roads that we're going to work on. So the answer, Chris, is I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get back to you on that. And it's not all necessarily going to be done in unison, because if roads in, for instance, Ashbrook Place are much worse than somewhere else in 45 acres, then they're going to take care of those first.
So, can I make a comment? As long as you're talking about roads, I submit and request that the roads in Ashbrook be looked at. They were patched last year, and every time I leave, it's like I'm on a buckboard or something going out to get to Wolf Road.
Every road has been looked at. There is a schedule. I don't have the numbers in front of me. So, again, it's based on worse condition. I will say that, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but surrounding communities, I say this all the time, as bad as our roads are, we are head and shoulders above some of the other communities, which
Yeah, the roads,
we
when,
work hard on.
when we look at them, or when the engineering looks at them, they give them ratings.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a higher rating is good or bad, I forgot. But, so yeah, they're all looked at and then they're considered, and obviously the worst ones get done first.
Sean, anything else?
No, that's it.
Trustee Donnesberger?
I think I've already reported.
Thank you. Village Clerk?
No report.
Village Treasurer? No report. Village Attorney?
No report.
Village Administrator?
No report.
Assistant Village Administrator?
Yeah, I got a few quick items. Unfortunately, sorry, Trustee Kennedy. Leaf vacuuming, that's going to be starting Monday, October 31st. Monday, October 31st through Friday, October 4th. And then it's going to be every other week. So then it'll also be Monday, November 14th, and the week of Monday, November 28th. I would also let all residents know that during the weeks of leaf vacuuming, you are able to put one bundle of brush out to the curb without a sticker. So we encourage you to take advantage of that as well. The other thing is I would encourage all residents to sign up for our email newsletter. So we release our physical copy of the newsletter quarterly. For the off months, we are going to be publishing a kind of a shorter email newsletter. So you can sign up on that on our village website front page. There's a link to sign up. And then the last thing I have to say is I wanted to announce a little contest or competition that we are doing. Village staff was talking last month about how this building is kind of barren of art, and especially barren of good art. And so we are having a little competition from the residents, a photo competition. And we're going to kind of run this over the course of the next year. And the idea is to get photos from all different seasons from Indian Head Park, and then to kind of blow them up and put them on the wall and have a little placard saying thank you to whichever resident submitted that photo. So I would encourage all residents, if you got nice photos or if you want to try to get your name up on the wall in Village Hall, go take some nice photos. So that's all I got.
Andy, I got a question about leaf pickup. Like
Yeah.
when you say the first one is October 1st through that week, I believe they have to be out on that Monday, October 31st.
Yes, to guarantee pickup, it's got to be out Monday morning. And so it is weather dependent, and depending on the quantity of leaves, it can take a couple days or it can take a week. So we just ask for patience. If you've noticed that your leaves aren't getting picked up, feel free to call the village. But most likely it's just they haven't gotten to you yet. But and then we always reiterate this too. Please rake them up to the street, but not in the street. It's critical you don't put them in the street. It causes stormwater or traffic safety issues.
So Andy, I have a question for you about the photo contest. I saw on social media you're advertising or announcing the contest. Do you consider that picture that's on there to be good art or bad art, or?
I don't even know what picture you're talking about.
It's pretty ugly.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's a good one. Yeah.
It's a pile of leaves.
Yeah.
Not a good-looking pile of leaves either.
No. We've gotten some very nice ones.
I just wanted to test you on that.
All right, thank you, Andy. Department head reports. Police, Steve. Best for last or near last?
But you're all happy, right? Good evening. The chief's out of town at the Chiefs Convention, so I'll do my best to fill his shoes. Just a synopsis, September to present day today, we've had 785 incidents, 405 premise checks, and the most important thing are probably we've had 4 burglary to motor vehicles in September and 1 stolen vehicle. And I will point out that all those incidents occurred because the cars were unlocked, and the stolen vehicle was because the keys were left in the car. If all those vehicles were locked, nothing would have happened. The people that come out here are looking for easy opportunities. They go from car to car. They don't even look in the cars. They pull on door handles. They find the door open. They're going to research what's in the car and take anything of value. Or if the key's in the car, they're going to steal the car. So we've put out on social media, Facebook, everybody needs to do their good duty and lock up everything they have, and they'll move on to somewhere else. I recently found out that I guess IDOT and Flock have finalized their requirements for a permit for the LPR cameras at Joliet and Wolf. So it appears that it's going to be about 8 to 10 weeks, hopefully, for that permit to be secured. Soon after that, we'll be able to put the posts in the ground. I don't think there'll be a wooden post, though, out there at Joliet and Wolf. We can recommend it, but I don't think that's going to happen. And soon after that, the camera will go in and the solar panel, and it'll be operational. The other thing is Halloween is the 31st, and our recommendations for Halloween trick-or-treating hours are from 3 to 7 p.m. Once again, the recommendations. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Public Works?
I'll take that. We had bid opening today for the reservoir and pump station work. You will be getting the engineer's evaluation shortly for action at the November board meeting.
Any summary or anything you can pass along, or we have to wait?
You have to wait.
Thank you. We have a building report that I believe was included in the board packet, so we don't need to talk about it, and if it wasn't, we'll get it there. We're at the point, public comments. Anybody like to say anything? Yes, please.
My name is Jessica McLean. I just moved to Indian Head Park.
Can you pull the microphone down, please, just for the
sure.
recordings?
Oh, golly, so sorry. My name is Jessica McLean. I just moved here maybe 9 months ago, or maybe almost a year ago. I live at 6485 Apache Drive. And I just want to say, first of all, Andy and Justin, several of you all have been so wonderful. We've had a lot of, I guess there's a difference between flooding or water damage, but we moved in around Christmas time, and it wasn't long after that we started having a lot of water coming in our entire backyard. And when I say it, I mean it was not usable for most of the spring. And they were lovely enough. They came over in their waders. We had to have 3 big trees cut down in the backyard because of root rot. And the water would come all the way to our back patio. And it's a little bit disheartening when you hear someone say, who you were hoping that they would say, well, my husband works for the Army Corps of Engineers, and we kept thinking, well, maybe they'll come out with a big we had someone come in and say, well, it'll take $25,000 to do that swale. And we thought, well, that's a big bite. We'd already spent, I don't know, $8,000 or $10,000 cut down these trees and to put more grass in and sod and do all these other suggestions. But we thought, my husband kept saying, well, if everyone just does their own improvement on their own property, we're probably just moving our water onto the next guy's property. Wait and see what the engineer says, because it would make more sense if the engineer comes out with one big plan and then the whole community will work together versus we just do our plan, but then our water might move to the neighbor's property. But now it seems like he's saying it's not a problem. But I will tell you, honestly, Maggie and Mike, our next door neighbors, Ray and Suzanne, our next door neighbors on the other side, we literally could not use our backyard for 4 months. Not at all. We couldn't we couldn't let our dog out. Nothing. It was disheartening to move in and find out I couldn't use my backyard at all for months on end. I wouldn't have bought the house. I wouldn't have moved in had I known I didn't have a backyard. It's an assumption if you buy a house, your yard is usable. Not I have to fix my yard. Not the homeowner is responsible for the movement of water from the community, from my neighbor's house to my house. I just feel like, and my husband feels like, part of the community, the village is a little bit responsible for managing the water. And again, we paid 10 or 15, I mean, I'm happy to pitch in, but I just don't understand. Or if you want us to do some of it, then maybe you just give every homeowner a lump sum and say, you have this much damage, here's your lump sum, try to fix your bit as best you can. But just to say, I honestly, in all good conscience, I just don't think it can be lack of managing. It just doesn't seem realistic that just because people aren't taking care of their property, it could cause that much damage. I moved from LaGrange, and I know people who didn't manage their property or something, and it didn't ever look like this. It didn't look like people had uninhabitable backyards. And the people I lived around, and we lived kind of across the street from you, we literally couldn't walk our dog. We couldn't let our dogs in the backyard. It was, I had to wear, it was my house.
Nobody can hear you on the recordings.
Yeah, well, like the Bluter, the gentleman who did my back, cut our trees down, he said I'd never seen damage like this. He's like, he said, you're going to get it in your house. Water goes like that. If you're getting it like this across the back of your house, the next place it's going to go is in your house. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think it's a bigger problem than just sweeping out.
Danielle, we can't.
Okay, so I don't know, but it's a very.
That.
I'm very troubled. I mean, we can move obviously, and that will probably be, if it doesn't get fixed, we'll all just move. But the other thing is then you've got a community where people are like, don't move there because it's got big water problems. It's a problem. It's a real big problem. And it might not affect all of you, but I think it affects a lot of people, and it's just very disheartening to hear someone come up who's a professional and say, it's not really a problem, because when you live it and you can't use your house or your backyard, and every time it rains, you get a pit in your stomach like, oh golly, it's a big, for some of us, it's kind of a big problem. So that's all. But again, for the people who've been super responsive, I'm very appreciative, because the people who've come to the house and tried to be very helpful, I couldn't ask for nicer, kinder people who've been helpful from the village. They've been wonderful. So
Thank you, Jessica, and welcome
let me say
to Indian Head Park.
First of all, I'm sorry for all the trouble you've been through. It sounds just awful. And I don't think there's anything worse than water damage. But my question is, were you able to resolve the issue?
Well, they were very lovely, and I have to say, I mean, again, I can't tell you how kind everyone has been. And they came and they dug like a trench kind of a thing.
Yeah, so your house was positioned, so there's a lot going on for your house. Your house was positioned in a way that it was close enough to an easement so that we were able to do some work in that easement. Basically, we connected some of the water that was going through your yard, now it was going to the storm sewer. Since we made that change, I don't think, like we were talking before the board meeting, we haven't had a big enough rain to test it. I know you haven't had issues since we did it, but this spring will be the test. And then the other kind of tricky thing is it was a confluence of issues for you, because at the same time, the reason why it kind of got a lot worse was the homes behind you. One of them had built up a berm that they weren't supposed to, which redirected water that was supposed to go to another storm sewer. And then we had another home that put what's called a pop-up. So basically it takes all the water from your roof, and then it goes down a pipe and then pops up. And then that water, they put in that pop-up closer to your property. So that, and along with the other neighbor who did the grade change, those two things together really increased it. Now, almost definitely you were getting water, that property was getting water beforehand just because it's on a lower elevation. But hopefully the adjustment that Public Works was able to do will help. And I know you've done the landscaping and stuff too, and that'll help too. And that's kind of one of the tricky things with the report is, because when I first read the report myself, I was amazed by the idea that this is working as designed, because I'm like, I get the phone calls, I talk to the residents.
Right.
And a lot of times what we'll find when we do delve in, and this is why I was emphasizing earlier, you did the right thing, let us know, because we'll come out, and try to help and advise.
Right,
and,
you were there all the time.
And a lot of times it is a localized issue, like kind of like Trustee Kennedy said, somebody did landscaping and that redirects it, or somebody fills in something and that messes something else up, or like a sump pump's not working. I've heard a million different issues, and so a lot of times it may not actually be the entire system, it might be a localized thing. And I think that the village still has we have an obligation to serve the residents, and whether that's advising or if there's work we can do on public property or in easements like in your case, I think the board is all in favor of that. But yeah, that's pretty much
I guess maybe it's painful as a homeowner. I think some of us were experiencing it when someone as a professional stands up and says, it's all working when you're living in it, and you're like, this doesn't feel like it's working. I feel like if I could sell my house tomorrow, I would. This doesn't feel like it's working, and I feel like I have spent a lot of my own money after I just bought this house. you know what I mean? I think that is the frustration level. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I mean, to take everyone's time.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just, because I live sort of behind Jessica. And, you know, we had water issues too when we built our home, and we ended up paying a lot of money to put in a rain garden because we knew that our water was our issue and we didn't want to dump it onto other neighbors' properties. And I know when Andy was out this spring kind of looking at, you know, the issues that you were having, and I kind of mentioned to him it might be a really nice thing for the village to think of an initiative that would actually encourage residents to be able to do something like that, contain water in their own yard that lets it eventually run off with some sort of funding program. I mean, y'all just got $1 million. Like, I mean, that'd be great to be able to offset some of that cost to allow residents to manage their own water and not dump it onto their neighbor's property, whether accidentally or intentionally. So, you know, I'm happy to talk to you guys about that. We had another neighbor across the street that did a really large dry well, and it completely dried up their backyard. So if anyone needs some help on that, as well as the native plants that are associated with rain gardens, I am more than happy to share that information with y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other comments, excuse me? Okay, I don't hear any. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll say.
Thank you, Eileen and Chris. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Meeting is adjourned.
Well, I had a lot of